seems to have won all his earnings in the last 2 months before lockdown. An absolute pleasure to say that the guy's got 1.7 million in life earnings. He's 68th on the all-time English list. We have got 3 GUKPT main event trophies, which might start you trying to guess who it is. The only player with 2 GUKPT Grand Final titles is the GUKPT all-time money leader. And it is our pleasure to spend an hour with the tower with Mr. Ben Windsor.
Hello.
How you doing, pal?
Yeah, good, mate. You?
You've had a lockdown haircut.
Lockdown haircut. Yeah, it had to go.
How did it get?
Yeah, not quite that, but yeah, the beard and the hair just showed. We took it all off.
Yeah.
Going back.
We're gonna spend an hour with you, and we're gonna ask you quite a few questions regarding what has happened, because you've had a fantastic run of success. We obviously know you from the GUKPT, so we will be touching on that quite a lot. But where did you start playing poker? Who did you learn with them, and how long ago was it? And did you think, do you know what, this could be the career for me?
Nah, I never really thought that, but I just I enjoyed it from the first time I sort of saw it. Like I just enjoyed like the gambling. I've always liked gambling, like fruit machines and arcades and whatever else. Yeah, just start. I've watched my brother that used to know how to play it.
Yeah.
So I sort of learnt from him, and we used to watch the poker on the TV, and then yeah, got a few of the lads up the golf course into it, and we used to have £1 freeze outs.
That's the way to. That's the way to start the £1 freeze outs. I tell you, everybody builds from them. We spoke to Jake Cody, and he was like £5 rebuys where he started. It's just progression. It's just progression, isn't it?
Yeah. That was one of the first comps I won, £5 rebuy. Yeah.
It's everybody has to start. Your first cash on the Hendon Mob. Do you actually know what it was?
I think it's a 1K at Palm Beach.
It was indeed, and I actually think we were there because we used to do the updates for the 1K at the Palm Beach. Yeah, it was a 4-way chop for 14,500. Do you remember much about it?
I think that's the one where I was sitting next to Teddy, sharing him at one point. I think
he just started playing, hadn't he?
Yeah. So that was like very like surreal, sitting next to Teddy, like obviously football legends. Yeah, I just remember being obviously quite nervous, but Palm Beach, lovely casino.
Yeah.
I think I played with Matt. I think I've done a chop with you and Jones.
All right, okay, yeah. Because then with the days there were like 60, 70 runners, weren't they, in the 1K? But it was a one. Was it a Monday night?
It's I think it's a Monday night. Yeah, once a month. Yeah.
It's a crazy game. So you can just imagine how many people turn up for a grand on a Monday night.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, great little comp that was.
Yeah, it was a very, very good film. They're always tough fields as well. It was a great film. I do remember going down there as well and thinking, wow, this casino is pretty impressive. Is that what you thought when you first walked into the Palm Beach?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, lovely little casino that.
Absolutely. Yeah. You made 8 GUKPT main event final tables. Your first was in 2013. What on earth made you go up to Didsbury?
I don't really know, to be honest.
It's a long way from where you are.
I think it is when I was obviously very enthusiastic about playing, so I didn't care where I was driving to. I just wanted to get there and play. And obviously, GUKPTs used to watch them like occasionally and think, "Oh, one day I'd like to be able to play in these."
Yeah.
And yeah, Didsbury. It was a 500.
That's right.
500 buy-in at Didsbury.
Yeah, just short of 10,000. So was it a little bit of disappointment for yourself for finishing third?
probably at the time. I can't really remember too much about it, but yeah, I'd have probably been disappointed. But I think it was a lot of money a lot of money to me back then.
Still a lot of money.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, of course, yeah. But yeah, then I was a lot.
Yeah,
couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Can you remember anybody on the final table?
Was it Andy Booth?
Ah!
We was there,
I think Andy finished 7th. I think he was 7th.
Yeah.
Yes, he still boasts, I've been on a GUKPT final, but it was he was indeed on that final table.
And Tom Hall as well.
Yeah.
Tom been there.
Yeah. Well, you've done a lot better than Andy Booth has since then, because that was his last final table.
Oh, was it?
It was indeed his last final table. It wouldn't be the only final table that you have been on a GUKPT. And like I said, we know you a lot from the circuit, the British circuit as well. The GUKPT main event in Brighton in March 2014, another final table. And this time you finished 4th. Do you remember much about Brighton?
I do. That was I think that's just when I started playing solely just poker.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I used to sports bet and that a lot. And I just knocked well, didn't quite knock it all on the head, but yeah, was just playing poker, and I think I got a little bit unlucky four-handed or in one of the all-in spots, and yeah, I can't really. I'm trying to think back to it.
It's one of the nicest casinos, Brighton. I must admit, it's such a shame that I know the circuit could have. If we went back to every GUKPT that we ever did, we'd end up in like 25 different locations. But Brighton was one of the best. 4 weeks later, though, my friend. 4 weeks later, there's a place called Walsall.
Oh, Walsall.
You will remember Walsall because you beat Simon Deadman heads up.
Yeah.
And at the time, Deadman was like one of the names on the circuit. It was the name that everybody talked about. Oh, Simon's playing, and now you beat him heads up. 29,000 for the win.
Yeah.
Is that still etched in the memory? The first GUKPT win.
Is that still what? Sorry.
Is it still etched in the memory? The first one.
Yeah. I'll never forget that one. Yeah, I remember being real super nervous day 2. And then yeah, sort of on the final table, I remember sort of you just sort of drift into, I'll say the zone. You sort of drift into the zone. You don't really think about it. But yeah, good to play with Simon, like you say at the time, was a real upcoming and feared player.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was that was unbelievable. That was.
Did that give you the chance to get yourself a bigger bankroll? Was that put towards the first Ben Windsor bankroll?
Yeah, that definitely was. Yeah, but that's what I bought a calf straight away with that, and yeah, the rest went towards the next few tournaments, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it certainly helps because in 2015 we go off to play a WPT. The WPT 500, a huge field of 1,616 entries. You finished 6th for 20,000, and obviously you were so close to the WPT title itself. But first prize, were you always looking sideways and thinking, "By heck, it's 150 grand up"?
Yeah, definitely. I remember being super gutted about that one. I fancied that one. But yeah, 150. Yeah, I couldn't wait to get my name on a nice 6-figure payday. But yeah, just weren't meant to be that time.
Yeah, obviously you played the GUKPTs. What were it like playing WPT with so many different names that you probably never heard of, and a lot of foreign players come playing as well? Obviously, it's totally different, isn't it?
Yeah, it's dusty. It's at Dust Till Dawn, so it's quite a nice little place to play. It felt quite, like home sort of thing.
Yeah.
As well as a an English card room, and I can't remember. I think I played the online day one there.
Yeah,
because obviously a bit of a journey, and that's sixth place finish.
Yeah, sixth in your first year of WPT, and I'm sure we'll be mentioning a WPT again in the conversation a little bit later on. But it certainly put you in good stead, because also in 2015, and just a month later, the GUKPT Grand Final, 321 entries, and you win it for a mammoth 178,000. Yet again, you've got Deadman on the final table. You've got James Aikenhead, who's obviously done the World Series final table, and all-round super player. What was that like? How was the adrenaline for that score?
I can't really remember. I remember on the final feeling quite confident. I think I went into the final table as chip leader, and just run well, was just in the right spots, like most of the time, and another great experience. Yeah, playing with Simon again, and Simon never got the chips, unfortunately for him.
Yeah,
but playing with Aikenhead. I remember seeing a couple of crazy pots with him, and first win, unbelievable.
They are phenomenal tournaments, the grand finals, and a lot of people play. A lot of people who do play them say that it's one of the best assembled fields that you'll ever get around any tournament. Is that what you're feeling when you're playing in such a grand final, the GUKPT?
What's that? The field?
Yeah, and how tough the fields are. I know it's 321 runners. They're tough fields, aren't they?
Everyone turns up for that one, don't they? But all the GUKPTs in general have just got a nice mix of players. Yeah, the grand final, such a big event for me then. It still is now, but it's amazing little tournament.
Yeah, well, you're on a bit of a heater, and we just carry on playing poker. I'm already thinking that because you've cashed in the big one, and you've cashed in the WPT, the name of Ben Windsor's starting to reverberate around the poker table. So your first ever EPT cash was in February 2016. Do you remember where it was?
Was it Dublin?
It was indeed, yes, the fair city itself. 605 runners, you finished 59th. Was that your first EPT, or was it your first cash in an EPT?
You know what? I don't really remember. I don't think it was my first. No, it wasn't my first EPT. I went to Prague after that grand final win. But yeah, I was. I remember day two playing. I think that's when I. Oh no, it wouldn't have been day two. But I played good though, and I was real gutted that I busted there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm just the EPT. You've done the WPT. You've done the GUKPT. You've got the EPT cash. Just going back a couple of months before, just after the grand final, the GUKPT 2016. You made the final table in London, and it seemed to be for us, and we were there, and obviously yourself. We chopped it, but we didn't just chop. We chopped it 8 ways.
Yeah, but that's never been done before, is it?
It's never been done since. It's never been done before. I know. What was your feelings about the deal? No disrespect to anybody else, but you must have thought you were best player in the tournament.
Yeah, yeah. It's just very very shallow. I think the bubbles went on real long, and it's got quite shallow. And I was which is unusual for a GUKPT. It's normally pretty deep the whole way through. But I remember, I think I was second in chips, and I had 22 big blinds, which anything can happen when it comes to that. It's about finding cards and if I try and nick a blind or something and get caught on, isn't you? And
do you regret doing the deal?
Yeah, looking back at it, yeah, definitely. But at the time, I was happy with the 30K and a chance for we played a sitting go. I could still pick up second place if I won it. Second place money, and at the time I just thought isn't the worst deal in the world, and I think what did I get for it? 30 grand.
36. Yeah, you got 36. Eventually finishing third for 36 out of the field of 394. Oh, can you remember who instigated the deal? Was it just like a thing that everybody was just talking about at the same time?
Who was the there was an amateur player playing that was a very chipped up. Was it? I can't remember.
I know Mark Banning was on the feature table. Who used to be on? Mark Banning used to do the TV, the poker night live on TV. I know he was in it.
Yeah. What was his name on the stream? Mr. B or something, was it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh no, that was Mr. Yes, it was. Yes.
I think he was the one that instigated the chop. Yeah, because he was big chip leader, and he's quite he's hard to read and putting on the pressure. And when you haven't got many chips, it was hard. It's putting you in a lot of tough spots. And obviously with the pay jumps how they are, it was it was tough.
Well, it was it was different for us as well, obviously on the live stream. And you're not there. You're not there to entertain us. No, you're there to make money. And we all understand that. Don't ever think that was the wrong thing to do. But it was the first. It was the first time somebody walked back. I think it was Peaky who walked back. He says, "I think we've just chopped it 8 ways."
I think it's purely just because, like I said, I think the average stack was 20 big blinds, and it was I think that's what it come down to. And obviously, it was a lot of money, and it's 109,000. I remember it being 109K up top. Bit of a mental deal. I don't normally do too many deals, but that was one of the times I decided to
join in the fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's not been repeated since, and like I said, we don't mind if it ever does, because you're there to make the money, and you are still doing it. So and we carry on. Obviously, we've just done the EPT. In March 2016, the GPS in Southend, 245 entries. You come second, 18,000, but you were beaten by Danny Tran. Now, he is one of your friends down south, and I think from the same area, same town.
Yeah.
Does it still remind you of that?
Does what?
Does he still remind you?
Do you know what? I haven't seen him. But yeah, he's no, he doesn't remind. I haven't really kept in contact with him, to be fair. But
what was it like playing heads up against one of your mates at the time?
Yeah, it's good. I like Danny. He's a good player as well. But yeah, another time where I was gutted not to get the title, even though I don't like the pictures and the interview afterwards. But another one of those that just slipped through the fingers.
Well, you all took the money straight home with you down over to Margate. So I'm going to ask, Margate, Ramsgate, Broadstairs, which is it?
Which is what?
Which is it? Which part of the country are you from?
I'm from Margate.
Obviously, we've got the Margate, we've got the Margate, and we've got Thanet, and we've got Ramsgate, and then the Broadstairs. But all the money just went that way with you guys. It was good to watch, and I do remember you was a little bit upset when we finished second, but there's nothing too bad in being upset at that time. But another 18K to the score, which adding to the coffers, which ain't too bad, because just a few months later, you go back and play the WPT 500 at Dustle Dawn, fixed in 2015. And this one, you won it for a career best of 182,000. Another massive field. How did it feel?
Yeah, mental. It was just a minefield, like it felt like a live Sunday Million.
Yeah,
that sort of feel. And I actually remember that one. I made day 2 on a Sunday. I played the online leg, got through.
Mm-hmm.
I played day 2 on a Sunday, and actually played first half of football, and then come off at half time and quickly went home, had a shower, and drove up to Nottingham. Just got there on time.
Great preparation.
And, yeah. And that was another one where it was real like shallow stacked. I think I was down to like 7 bigs at one point. I remember getting to the final. It's a real grind for me. Not much I could do, and then luckily just found a couple of good spots on the final, and just out of nowhere really. Managed to chip up and beat Keith heads up.
Yeah, 1,835 entries. You said it was a minefield. Did you?
Yeah.
Was you ever nearly out?
Yeah. I can't remember Pacific hands, but yeah, like I said, down to 7 bigs. On one of the breaks, I remember someone asking how much I had, and I was like, I've got 7 bigs.
Yeah.
And I think Talizini asked me how many chips I had, and I was like, I've got 7 bigs. Don't really fancy it, do you, when you got 7 big blinds? But yeah, he had a similar stack, and I managed to spin up, and he unfortunately spun out.
It's just a great story, because 2015 and 2016 for yourself were fantastic, and finishing 2016 was the 25-25 series in Thanet. Even though you just won the WPT for £182,000, you're still supporting your local card room, and you're still turning up for the 25-25, and you won it for 9,000. Do you still get the same rush as winning the 9 as you did? Obviously, the 182, the 182 was massive, but is it just the fact of winning?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter what it's for. It was I loved winning that comp, and it's quite a funny story actually. On day 1, I was drinking while I play, like some of the smaller tournaments. I have a few drinks while I'm playing, and I don't actually remember getting through day 1. I had to ring up the casino and see if I bagged up. Yeah, turned up late on day 2. Turned up late on day 2. Ordered 3 of those large bottles of water, necked those, and found a triple up early doors against Martin Holmes. Was one of the players I found a triple up against.
Yeah,
and then didn't look back on that one. I loved winning that one.
That's been the first time somebody has to ring up just to see if they've actually made the day 2.
Yeah, I think I was. What the card room manager said, I was really chipped up, like I had over 200,000 or something.
Yeah.
And obviously, when you're steaming, I was playing a lot of hands, and I think I only bagged up 50k or something in the end. Yeah. But I walked away. Apparently, I just walked away from the table, didn't bag up. They had to write on my bag, and I couldn't actually remember if I made it through or not. No idea how many trips I had.
Thanet was obviously on the GUKPT list years ago. Do you still go back and relive and just have a general chat with the lads down there? Do you still play down in Thanet?
Yeah, I'll play whenever. I think they have a half decent comp once a month or something, or if they do the deep stack or the 25. Although they do the deep stack, and if they've done the 25, I'd probably go along if I'm at home, because it's literally 5 minutes down the road for me. So it's perfect to go see everyone, because I used to play there pretty much every night when I was younger. Go back, see everyone, and have a few drinks, have a laugh.
Yeah, well, we actually, I think one of the places we'd love to go back for, obviously the GUKPT, would be Thanet, and I know you guys do support the local card rooms, which is great. In 2017, you cashed in the Goliath. Now,
Yeah.
it might have been 276, but you play the 1,000 tournaments, you play the 2,000, the 5,000 buy-ins, you play the WPTs, the EPTs, and all the lots. What's it mean? What's it mean? And how can you explain to somebody that's never played Goliath? What is it like to walk and sit down and play in that fantastic event in country?
Yeah. Crazy. Yeah, well, it's like you say, it's like the main event of Vegas, but in England, but obviously with smaller buy-in. Perfect for all the players, like all the amateur players. So yeah, what a great comp, and what a great atmosphere as well.
It is. That's how poker should be played, isn't it?
Yeah. It's obviously with the higher stakes now, it can get a bit serious and that, can't it? But yeah, that's for that buy-in and that. It's just a great atmosphere, great event, and obviously you can turn a little bit of money into a lot. What is it, 100 grand up top?
For £100 buy-in.
Yeah. So it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant comp.
Obviously, there isn't one this year, which is a bit of a shame with what's gone on, and the world's just completely turned upside down. Goliath's going online.
Wow.
Just been announced, 15 events from the 1st of August. I'm guessing you're going to be playing them.
I'll definitely have a look. Yeah, I think my plan was to have a go on the Goliath. Like I said to you, I haven't really been playing too much, but I'll definitely be interested in playing a Goliath, trying to spin up a stack there.
Yeah,
massive comp, isn't it, really?
It is, and the satellites have already started, and people can't wait for that. And it's obviously Goliath for us. It's the party atmosphere. It's getting dressed up, and it's having a laugh, and you're wandering around, and you're singing, and you're doing the. It's just totally different feel. You did cash. You come 276. Is there a point where you could think, if only I could just make this day 3, and you never know, anything could happen.
I still look back at that comp now. I played pretty bad. I managed to spin up a real nice stack, and then I've made a couple of iffy calls that, looking back, were pretty bad. But I was just sort of gambling a little bit because obviously the pay jumps aren't as big. So I took a few too many shots when I didn't really need to. Just should have stayed patient. But yeah, I was gutted about get a bust in there.
Yeah,
hated that shit. And I remember everyone. You could get a price on who's going to win it, and I think PK had a bet on me, and I was gutted that I let him down.
Well, it's obviously 2020 live is not going to be, but get yourself looking at the schedule for the online, because it's going to be another biggie, even though it is online, and you never know, we might beat the 276. November 2017, you got the mini main. So not only got the mini main, you got the main, and you got the mini, you got the 25-25s. It's like the Grosvenor Triple Crown. Do you always travel early in the week to play the minis?
No, I don't. But Blackpool, obviously being quite a far trip, I fancied going up there for the week, playing the mini. I think I had a couple of drinks while I was playing that one, and I just thought, instead of just travelling up for the main, make a week of it up there, because I like Blackpool as a place to go. Brilliant little place. Just like being by the seaside, really.
You go from coast to coast, but and Blackpool, obviously, as a GUKPT event, always good, always got the crack. In, like you said, with Goliath, but Blackpool's a little bit like that, isn't it?
Yeah, really good atmosphere. Everyone's up for having a laugh, and always a decent prize pool as well. But it's a shame it's so far away from me.
Well, you travelled up to Blackpool and you ended up with the Grosvenor Triple Crown. It's pretty impressive. In May 2019, we played the Unibet Open at the Vic. 456 runners, and you ended up finishing second. There's usually a lot of online qualifiers for these kind of events. Is that a little bit different than playing a normal GUKPT or a normal event with hardly any online qualifiers?
yeah, I remember Unibet is quite a you get a lot of foreign players.
Yeah,
Like yeah, like you get the
yeah.
Swedes and yeah,
A lot
get
of
a
them
lot of different.
satelliting in for a fraction of the price. Does it make a difference to the
Exactly.
player, do you reckon?
You are different
Does
to
it
the
make a
play.
difference to the player when you're playing?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah. They're over there for a good time, and I think some of them are gamers as well.
Yeah.
So that's it. Yeah, I remember it being quite a nice field to play in. But yeah, always nice to go to the Vic for any comp.
Yeah, and second again for 48,000. Must have
Right.
give yourself a pat on the back the morning after.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah. Obviously, I'm always gutted unless I win it. So yeah, it took a. But after a couple of days after, I was well chuffed with it. The second place, another loss heads up though.
Well, we carried on. We carried on 2019 in November. You got second in the 888 high roller for 17,000, losing to the guy that we spoke to in a previous hour with the channel, Mr. Chris Morman.
Yeah.
Now this tournament, when it was a Wednesday and Thursday, but only a short field of 31 runners, but it must have been tough.
Yeah, it was a really tough field. Like it's in Stratford, so it's quite a nice little drive for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was leading up to a week of the GUKPT, so I hadn't played much, and I just wanted a little warm up. Turned up, there wasn't many players, and it was a real tough field. So I was thinking, why have I turned up for this? But yeah, managed to navigate my way through the field and get myself heads up against Morman, who just smashed me.
He's done that to everybody else but you. Don't worry about that. It's but 31 runners. It must have been like the creme de la creme. But
yeah.
Finishing second to Chris isn't a bad thing. We get a couple of weeks later, we get to the grand final of the GUKPT. There's 273 runners, and we win it again. For the second time, it's just eclipsed your biggest score, 188,000. So you become the only two-time grand final winner. But that really wasn't the talking point for us or the stream as it was, because on the bubble there was a three-way all-in, including yourself. We've got the aces, the kings, and then there's somebody sat there with pocket queens.
Yeah.
And I think we spoke briefly about it, but you didn't hesitate.
What the call?
It was like, well, I've got queens.
Yeah, it was. I remember that Dan that was sitting to the left of me shoved on me a few times, and I found the queens. He shoved, so I was like, I thought I was loving it, and then they found a jam behind, and I remember, I think Dan shove was for a over 20 bigs, and I just put. He could easily have had like a lower pair than me, jacks, tens, nines, maybe. Obviously ace king, and then the shove behind, and it wasn't for my whole stack. And I'd have just been gutted if they both turned over ace king or jacks and ace king. So I just took the punt, flicked it in, and fancied it.
Well, that was obviously the turn. And when we clipped it out, and we clip a few clips out during the week, but that went berserk. And I mean, it just went like that. The people that watched it, viewed it, the clip. It was just such an insane, and especially with it being on the bubble as well. Did you just like think, oh well, that's what it is, it's just poker?
Yeah. I should have taken. Yeah, maybe I should have taken a bit more time thinking about it being on the direct bubble. But it just at the time it felt like the right call to make. And like I said, it wasn't obviously it crippled me. But if I lose, but I wasn't out of the tournament. I could still make it into the money quite comfortably. I think even if I lost that hand. So yeah, I went with the ladies.
and then the final itself was over relatively quickly, wasn't it? Especially for the grand final. It was like bump, 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 off you go kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that was I think I busted everyone but one player on the final. Just ran lovely, like just finding hands when people are shoved into me, and it's just run insane that final table. And then that big hand against Antoine Suit, I tried putting him in a tough spot, and he found the call with nines, didn't he? And I had the queen 8 of clubs, and just hit a dream flop, and I think it was dream turn as well.
It was a cracking final, but like you say, not only did you win 2, but the call with the queens on the bubble, it just honestly, it just went insane for us. We snipped that one out, and people were watching about it, talking about it, and it was just phenomenal. It was a cracking end to 2019, but you started straight away. A good start of the year, another deep run at the Dustledome. You finished 5th out of 1,030 for 36,000 in the millions minute. That was 150k up top. Did you think? Did you bust in 5th? Did you ever think I can win this one and this is mine?
Yeah, I was another one where I was absolutely gutted to bust that. I was chipped up as well. I think I was chip leader with 5 left and managed to bust 5th, but I lost a big pot to Nicola. I think the bloke who went on to win it, where he slow played aces in the big blind, and I think I had ace 9 and it come down 9 high, and he check shoves the flop, I think. And it's just one of those where you couldn't get away from it. And yeah, he had the ace, and that knocked me down to like 20, 30 bigs, and I don't think I could win a pot. Didn't really win a hand after that.
Well, it wasn't a bad start to 2020. A week later, we go down to London for the GUKPT, the mini main. The win again, 511 entries. You won it for 39. Is the Vic the best place in the world to play poker?
Obviously I've got good memories from the Vic, but it's it's a nice little place to play, and that was another fun tournament. That was I remember play. I don't think it finished till about 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah, it was really late. I remember PK telling us it was like ridiculously late, but when we get a win.
You are?
I said when we get a win, we don't mind losing on sleep, do we?
Exactly. Yeah, a real lot. I remember it being quite a long slog. Heads up, kept on making him shorter, then he'd double through, and then making him shorter. Yeah, went through the stage where I was almost falling asleep, and then obviously when it was morning, woke up again, and just about managed to close it out.
Yeah. Well, you had a couple of days sleep, and then we played the main. 379 entries in the main, because the cracking fields down there, they really are in the poker room. The numbers are super. Another interview and another second place interview. Just missing out on the record-breaking 4th GUKPT main event. Did this one get away from you, or was you quite happy with the second?
I was happy with the second. It was one of those tournaments where I was just sort of laddering for a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
So I put my phone on charge, just running out of battery. I was sort of just like laddering my way up, really, and like I normally do, found a couple of nice spots, nice hands at the right time, and I think I won a flip against Paul Siddle, I think his name is.
Yeah.
I won a flip against him, and managed to get heads up against Artan. He's a fun player to play with.
That wasn't a bad week in London. the mini main win, and then a GUKPT main second.
I
But
know,
the
it's
very
unbelievable.
next week in Manchester, you run deep yet again. A field of 317, and you finished second yet again. And I know you don't like talking to me when we get second, but this run, and I think we said at the time, this run, we could do interviews for second as long as we carry on talking, because you were just on fire.
I know. And Manchester, I really wasn't happy with the way I was playing. But, yeah, like I always say, just found some nice hands at the right time. Remember, on the feature table, I found aces versus nines all in pre.
Yeah.
And then towards the end of day 2, Ryan Mandara 4-bet shoved into me with King Queen, and I had Ace King that held. And then when I've got a few chips, it's even though I didn't feel overly confident with the way I was playing, I just applied pressure at the right times, I feel like. And the final table went. It took a while for a few people to bust, I think. Then.
Yes, it did. Yeah.
And it was managed to get through that tough little.
I think we played 8-handed for about 2.5 hours, and then we lost 2 or 3 straight away, and then it locked up again.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's It was. I remember thinking like everyone was winning the all-ins, weren't they?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
On the last cards or whatever, and I remember thinking it's got it in the stars that I'm going to bust 8 for. I was thinking all these people like doubling out on the river or whatever. I was thinking it's written in the stars that I'm going to bust 8 for, and I'd have been gutted because I think that was the first tournament with the online sportsbook where you could back.
Oh yeah, that's right.
back up the win. And
They've always got to back them.
A couple of people said they'd back me, so I was, yeah.
And then, for some unknown reason, 2020 stopped. But I know we've all stopped, and I know it's what's happened has happened. But your last 6 end of month results were 2 wins, 3 seconds, and a 5th. Yeah. And in 2020, before we actually did stop, you got $300,000 in career earnings. How are you keeping yourself busy? Have you been playing online?
At the start of lockdown, I was playing. I was playing a little bit because I was wanting to do the points for the leaderboard.
Yeah.
And then I just don't really. Online poker's not really my thing. I get I get distracted. I like to be at the table. So I just like I said, I don't think I've played for 5-6 weeks. Haven't watched any poker. Haven't played any poker. Just been going to work and drinking a lot, eating a lot.
Everybody has. What is it now? The quarantine 15 or something like that, isn't it? What everybody seems to have put on. So.
Yeah, I was you try and at the start I was trying to like keep healthy and play a bit of poker, do a bit of studying and that. But
have we had any scores of note?
What, online?
Yeah, while we've been in lockdown.
No, I don't think so. No. Because I haven't played for a while, I can't really. Definitely nothing to write home about.
That's like a lot of us, by the way. It's not just you. If you put in the volume, I know you get some scores, but there's quite a few people out there haven't had a touch. So you're not on your own. Don't worry.
I think when live poker's coming back up and running, I'll start watching a bit and playing again just to get back into it. But at the moment, just enjoying sort of taking a bit of time out and working and chilling out. It's quite nice. But I'm ready to get back to it now. It's getting a bit. I'm looking forward to going away, seeing some old friends and having a couple of drinks. Few stops. Yeah.
Totally agree. I'm going to fire some quick fire questions at you.
No,
The answer can be as short or as long as you like. We don't really mind. The best player you've played against?
I'm gonna have to stick with my guns. I'll probably say Deadman. I always used to. He's not. Yeah, he's just very tough to play. He made a lot of good. He just made the right decision a lot of the time. Hardly
The
made
most
any.
memorable. The most memorable hand.
Most memorable hand. Probably my first GUKPT win, Ace Jack offsuit.
Who is your study partner, and what do you talk? And who do you talk poker with if you still do it?
The main people I speak poker with is probably Mark Fogsy.
Mm-hmm.
He does a bit of study, and I don't really speak. There's not many. I know there's a few players around here that play, but when I go away, I talk with Fogsy, Tammer, and an older bloke, Dom Cummings, who plays. I talk a lot of poker with.
You always wear headphones at the tables. What are you listening to?
Sometimes nothing.
Really?
Sometimes nothing. Just so I just put them in sometimes so people don't talk to me.
That's a good thing.
And it depends what mood I'm in, really. I'll go anywhere from like a bit of classic to I'm normally garage, a bit of garage, and DJ like an MC that and that. I love that sort of stuff.
Where do you keep all your trophies?
Trophies. I've got a few of them on the windowsill upstairs in the spare room. Yeah, but I left one. I left the mini man. I left it in Blackpool. Luckily, I've got a couple others.
If you could beat anybody heads up for GUKPT number 4, who would it be?
Oh, it'd have to be one of my mates. I'd like to. I don't know, smash Fogsy heads up. I'd like to smash him heads up.
We have noticed you never like to watch yourself when you're rolling. Why is that?
I watch the table when I'm behind.
All right, okay.
I watch because I'm thinking no, like say for instance, no queen, and it always manages to show up. So it's just some stupid little thing that I got into, and I even do it online when I'm playing online. Turn away from the computer screen when I'm all in, and just a stupid little thing I got into, and well, I'm a good flipper most of the time, so it's worked wonders for me.
What's the aim for Ben when we get back to playing poker? Will it be chasing number 4?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I want that number 4, number 5. I'll be chasing number 4 definitely. Yeah, looking forward to it. Looking forward to getting back, but no word on when it's coming. Is there?
Not yet. No, not yet. You have to win the Goliath online for the starters, and then as soon as we do get back, we will be chasing number 4. That's for sure. Whenever it is.
I can't believe Corona screwed my hot streak.
Stopped you in your tracks. Just.
I know. Gutted about it.
And finally, for Ben Windsor, while we've been an hour with the tower, would you do anything differently?
Would I do anything differently? I don't really know. I guess you always learn from some of your mistakes, like spending money on stupid things. Yeah, going out. I always regret if I go out having a few drinks before I play poker because I play terrible when I'm hanging off. So I'd always start to change that. Change anything else? Yeah, probably a few things, but nothing that really comes to the top of my head.
Fingers crossed, 2020, if it starts up again, is as successful as 2020 before lockdown. 2019, 2018, and 17, because the last 5 years, Ben, it's been an absolute pleasure. And if we're not at the tournaments you're at, we're always checking all the updates to make sure where the name is. Let me tell you, we do keep an eye on you if you're not in the same place as where we are, let me tell you.
I know, but yeah, luckily you are there most of the time, because GUKPT is where I get most of my decent scores.
Yeah. Ben, thanks for taking time out and having an hour with the tower. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks a lot, Ben.
No. Yeah, thanks a lot, mate.
Welcome to an hour with the tower. We are going to be joined by quite a few different celebrities in the poker industry, chatting basically about the life story. First up is the legend. He is the man that has been around the block for over 30 years. He's going to tell me a little bit different, to be even longer than that, I am sure. But welcome on board, Mr. Joe Beavers. How are we doing, Joe?
I'm doing pretty good, Phil. Thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure to be on an hour with the tower. You know what? If we start talking and getting a couple of pints in, it might go on for a bit more than an hour.
We could sit in a pub and talk for days. Starting at the beginning, hopefully, we'll run through from start to finish with some interesting stories. I'm looking forward to this because I know there's a good few stories in there. Over $2.5 million in live earnings. Where did it all start?
I guess I started playing poker when I was at university. When I graduated from uni, I was 20. I went back as a mature student. I did finance. And I think I was like 23, something like that. The year after I graduated, I went to Vegas for the very first time, but not to play poker. I was just traveling around, taking some time out. But I had started playing poker whilst I was at university. And I was up in what was Sergeant York's casino, which is now, which was Grosvenor, which has now moved in Luton from the Dunstable Road to where it is now. And they used to have tournaments every evening, £10 rebuy tournaments. Like every Tuesday was a 7-card stud tournament. Every Thursday was the pot limit hold'em. Every Friday was the no limit hold'em. And I was actually up there playing blackjack with some friends. And I was playing with a couple of guys, and they got up to leave in the middle of a shoot. And I said, "Where are you going?" They said, "We're going to play a poker tournament." I said, "How does that work?" I mean, I played with friends, you know, I played some brag and stuff.
Yeah.
They said, "Well, you pay a tenner to enter." So I said, "What? I can only lose a tenner." They said, "Well, you can re-enter if you want, but you can't lose more than £10 in one go." And I was winning £300 or £400 playing blackjack. So I thought, this sounds a bit of fun. So I went over and I paid my tenner, and it was 7-card stud. This is the first tournament I ever played. So I kind of, you know, I thought I knew what I was doing. So they gave me 500 in chips, and I passed 3 or 4 hands, and then I found a pair of queens. And somebody raised and somebody else raised, and the bet was now 500. And you used to start with 500 chips in these tournaments, right?
Yeah.
And I only had 350 points left from the 4 or 5 hands I'd played. So I didn't know what to do. So I said, "Well, I've only got 350 points. What should I do?" And the guy sat beside me was a big bookmaker, Brian Stanovich. And he said, "Just put it in, John." So I put the 350 in, and all the cards got dealt out, and someone turned over aces and someone turned over kings, and my queens didn't improve, and I lost the pot. So now I didn't have any chips and I didn't know what to do. I said, "What do I do now?" The whole table shouted, "Rebuy!" So I got a tenner out, and Carmel Price handed me a £10. She handed me a 500-point chip. So I threw the chip to the guy that just won the pot and said, "I think I owe you 150.
Imagine a rebuy these days starting with 500 chips.
Imagine thinking you owe somebody after you lost the pot.
Oh, that's brilliant. But obviously, going to the tables when you first sit down and going to you, everybody knows you're a newbie. Nobody really knows Joe Beavers at the time. Even then, they'd still help you out, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, when I started playing, the casinos weren't allowed to charge for poker tournaments.
Yeah.
They weren't allowed to rake pots. They had a 48-hour rule. Things were very, very different. And the majority of casinos ran poker tournaments for, to get people in the door. They used to say they'd run it as a loss leader. But staff is one of the most expensive costs for a casino. So all the games were self-deal. So you would shuffle on the left, cut behind, and then the person would deal, and then the deal would move around the table. And that's what would happen. And sometimes you'd have someone that said, I'm not very good at dealing, will you deal for me? But most people could deal.
Yeah.
I could handle a deck of cards even then, but I didn't know the processes. I didn't know how everything worked. But yeah, all the games were self-deal. If we were lucky, we would get a dealer for the final table.
Yeah. Is that when you met the guys that became the Hendon mob, Ross?
Well,
and Ram?
Yes, kind of. I mean, that first time in Luton, I didn't do very well. Okay, obviously, I didn't really know what I was doing, but I kind of liked it, and I became a regular up there. This would have been in the mid-90s, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I was playing up there 5-6 nights a week, and one of the things I noticed, people say to me, how did I learn? Because when I learned, there was no internet, I'm making us sound really old here, Phil, because I know you're the same age as me. There was no internet, there were no training guides, there were no coaches. I think there was one book. I think Mason Malmouth had a book and perhaps Doyle Brunson had a book, but that was it. So you learnt by playing. And I noticed that the same players made the money and made the final tables every week. So I started at 2:00. They would have a breakfast, a cheap breakfast in the restaurant. I think it was like £3 for a full fryer. And whenever I saw one of the guys that had made the final table having breakfast, I went over and bought them breakfast. And I sat and chatted to them and asked them questions. And that's how I learned playing poker. That's where I met Ram. Well, no, I didn't meet Ram there. I mean, I got a funny story about how I met Ram, and I'll tell you that in a minute. But over time, Barney, Ross, and Ram and me, Luton became our regular.
Yeah.
Our regular venue, and the Vic, obviously. Barney and Ross living in Archway, near Hendon, would play at the Vic all the time, but we'd all go to Luton, especially for the festivals. I remember Ram won back-to-back tournaments in one festival there. And yeah, that was our local, and then we started doing quite well.
Yeah, and then obviously you started to travel around a little bit, and then you've just been talking about the mid-90s. Can you remember your first ever entry into your Hendon mob database?
Yes, I can. I like I said, the first time I went to Vegas, see my Las Vegas Raiders top?
I love it. Unbelievable. I can't believe you
go to one of their games in their first season this season. Shipped over especially from California. All our Las Vegas Raiders stuff. So I went to Vegas the first time ever in '94, but the first time I went to Vegas to play poker was in '96, and I was doing very well in the cash games. So I bought myself into a $3,000 pot limit hold'em tournament, first World Series of Poker event I ever played.
Yeah.
And we got down to 2 tables. It was all very, very different then. The tables, it was like 2 tables being in the middle of, just a normal card room. People milling around, people walking up to the table. Nothing was roped off. First prize was, I don't know, what was first prize in that tournament?
$180,000.
$180,000. Anyway, we're down to 2 tables, and I'm in the money. And I got into a pot with Jennifer Harmon, and she raised, and I moved all in with Ace Queen, and she called me with pocket. After a long, long dwell, she called me with pocket 10s, and the flop came 10-10-2. And that was the end of my first World Series. But I cashed in that tournament. I think I cashed $4,500, and it was won by Barbara Enright.
It was indeed.
Yeah, Barbara Enright. That was my first ever World Series of Poker tournament, and my first ever proper big cash. Obviously I've had cashes at Luton before, but this was my first World Series cash.
Going back to Barbara winning, obviously we still talk about how there aren't as many women in poker as much like. Your first event, when you finished 14th, was won by a woman. What was the percentage of women in Vegas at that time?
Do you know what? It was probably a similar kind of percentage than it is now. It's
Really?
probably
Not increased?
Well, I don't. It's hard to say, Phil. I mean, I can remember Jennifer and Annie Duke playing in the big limit cash games at the World's at the Binions Horseshoe.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Barbara was there, and there were a handful. I would say there's more female players now. Thinking back, I would definitely say the percentage is bigger now. It's definitely opened up.
Yeah. Quick quiz question. How many entries were there in that tournament?
186.
Oh, it's close. It's 180. That's not a bad guess from what, 25, nearly 25. That's nearly 25 years ago, Joe.
It is 25 years ago next year. Yeah, 25 years next year.
Yeah, 1996. And also on that final table, British lady, Lucy Rocash.
Ah, yeah.
Yes, finished third.
She was doing things that people at the time thought were incredibly unorthodox, and they used to say Lucy getting lucky again. But she was like the queen of the first. You know, she was always re-raising. I always remember it comes to she'd go, "We raise," and off she'd go with her ace-7 offsuit, and she'd win a big pot, and someone would say, "How can you re-raise with ace-7 offsuit?" But she always had mountains and mountains of chips, and she was a talent before her time.
Unbelievable! I tell you what, the stories that because I was speaking about the ladies, first, third, and Jenny Harman on that final table as well. You know, you don't get that nowadays, and that was 1996. So it just shows you the amount of women in that field. It looks like most of them made the final table.
Yeah, I mean, all those women players that we mentioned are all very, very good poker players.
Yeah. Joe, we're just going to leave it there for part 1, but we'll be back very, very shortly with part 2. So back for part 2 of an hour with the tower with the legend that is Mr. Joe Beavers. We touched on you starting to travel around a little bit, Joe. Your next venture, which seems like an amazing place to play, and there has to be 100 stories. Amsterdam. Please tell me there's some stories we can't hear as well as some that we can.
You're just freezing up a little bit there, Phil. I hope you're all right, pal. I kind of got the gist of the question.
Yeah, all good.
Okay. You have to remember, in the mid to late 90s, there was like a tour.
Yeah.
It's not like it is now, where on any given day you could go to one of 20 different festivals and there's lots of clashes and lots of competition. It was the same places. So every Easter would be the Irish Open. Every November would be the Master Classics in Amsterdam. Every May to June, July would be the World Series, you know, and every like literally each month we would go somewhere else, and I would travel around with Barney, Ross, and Ram. And the biggest festival of all, out in Europe, the biggest festival outside of America, outside of the World Series, was the MCOP, the Master Classics of Poker in Amsterdam. And it started, I think, in the early 90s, and we went 10 years in a row, 12 years in a row to the Master Classics, the 4 of us.
Nice.
Amazing place to play. The first year I ever went was 97. And I was sharing a flat in Hendon with a couple of friends of mine from university. And I won my first major tournament at the Master Classics of Poker in 1997. And I can remember, I must have borrowed I don't know if I had a mobile phone there or not, but I remember making a phone call to my flatmate at 3 o'clock in the morning, singing "We Are the Champions" down the phone, and I was very drunk. I remember doing that. But it was, it was the festival that everybody went to. I mean, now there's so much competition. It's still a great festival, but I haven't been for a few years.
Yeah. Well, same as Las Vegas, you had 190 runners in that event. 190 in that event. 190 in this one. So you beat 10 more people.
Brilliant. I can't tell you if they were women or not, though. Oh, do you know what? Do you know the amazing thing? I beat a woman heads up.
You did.
I did.
And I've got. I look at the stats, and it's not that I've remembered it all. I've got my stats in front of me. I'm doing my homework.
Brenda Nelson.
Correct, Brenda Nelson.
Beat her heads up. An American lady. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
taller than me.
and talking about stories. You say you were travelling about, and obviously stories that we can hear. How did you get to meet Ram as well as Ross?
I met Ram. I was driving around North London. I was actually in Stanmore with a friend of mine, Jeff, and this is pre-mobile phones. So we're driving along, and he says, "Oh, Joe, we've got to back a dog." So I said, "Is it going to win?" He said, "Yes, Joe, it's going to win." He said, "Listen," he said, "there's an AR Dennis betting shop up here on the left." He said, "And there's a phone box outside, one of the old red big metal phone boxes."
Yeah.
Now, what I want you to do, he said, he pulls up next to the phone box, which is immediately outside the betting shop. He says, "I want you to go and stand in that phone box." I said, "Okay." He said, "Here's £100." He said, he said, "Just stand in the phone box." He said, "It will ring. When it rings, you'll be given the name of a dog to back at this meeting at this time." He said, "Take the £100, go in and take the price, and then collect the money afterwards, and I'll pick you up afterwards."
Yeah.
So I said, "Okay." So I stood in the phone box, and the phone rings, and I pick it up, and he says, "12:45 Monmore, track 3, and puts the phone down. So I go in the shop and I look up, and track 3, it's opened even money.
Yeah.
It's gone 10 to 11, 4 to 5, 8 to 11, 4 to 6. It's now 8 to 13.
The money's on it.
It's now 8 to 13. So now I don't know what to do. You know, I've missed the even money, but I've gone straight into the shop. So I think, well, I've got to put the bet on, otherwise I'll have to pay it myself. So anyway, I've put the £100 on for Jeff, and I put something on for me as well. And I've stood and watched the race, and it got beat. And I've walked out the shop, and Jeff's picked me up, and he said, "Got beat?" I said, "Yeah, I know." He said, "Did you back it?" I said, "Yeah, I backed it." He said, "Well, okay, never mind." Anyway, so off we went. Anyway, the following week, I'm playing in a private game in Mill Hill. Like pre-internet, casinos closing at 4 o'clock. There were lots more private games going on. Yeah. So in this private game on a like full-size poker table with professional dealer and everything, I'm playing in this game, 7-card stud private game, and there's a ring at the doorbell. And someone goes to answer the door, and I can hear the voices in the hallway. And I think, I recognise that voice. And in walks this person, and he goes, "Hello, everybody." And I looked at him and I said, "Track 3, Monmore." And it was Ram Vaswani. He was the guy on the end of the phone. That's Ram and I became friends. We became friends in this game. We finished up running a game in Hendon. Like every Monday night. The game ran for 10 years. And Ross was a regular in the game. Ross would come all the time to the game. He came along one day with a friend, and Ross was a regular in the game. And then one day Ross bought Barney. And that's how the 4 of us collectively became the Hendon mob, playing in that game in my flat in Hendon. We were 4 of the hardcore in the game, travelling around together. And yeah, that's how I met Ram Vaswani in a telephone box. He's still tipping losers today.
Oh, that is so old school. Absolutely. Do you actually consider yourself as old school?
Yes, I think I'm very old school. I mean, look at the grey hairs, right? I even got a matching.
They're all here as well.
I'll tell you how old school I am, right? I mean, obviously, a lot of the stories will involve the boys, but I can remember going to the first ever poker tournament in Monte Carlo. Monte Carlo had never ever had a poker tournament before. Wow. And I think it was the Monte Carlo Millions. And we were staying at the Hotel de Paris. It's an amazing hotel, like on the main square. Very, very exclusive, very, very expensive. We were very lucky. We were all our expenses and everything were picked up. And we were playing in this tournament. Anyway, we've gone to check in this hotel. And I've got my laptop with me. I think we'd already set up the Hendon Mob website was already running. It was more like a blog at that point. The database hadn't even been thought of yet. and we had but there was a bit of online poker going on, and I had my laptop with me, and I went to the check-in, and I said, "Do you have internet here?" Oh, I can't do a French accent, but she says, "Yes, Mr. Beavers, Monsieur Beavers, yes, we have internet." I said, "How do I connect?" She said, "Hang on a second." She went. She said, "I don't know if there's any left." She said. So she went off and she came back and she had a 56k modem in her hand. And she said, I said to her, "The 56k modem, is that the best you got?" She said, "Yeah, this is good connection," she said. So she hands me the connection, and she says, "You need to plug this into your phone in your room for the dial-up." I said, "Okay." Now Ram is behind me at reception, checking in with somebody else, and he can overhear the conversation. And he says to the guy checking him in, he says, "I'd like the internet as well." And the guy says to him, "Oh, I'm sorry, Monsieur Vaswani, I'm very sorry. We only have two, and they're both out now. Mr. Beavers took the last one." So for the whole hotel, they've got two 56k modems. Ram comes running after me. He says, "How much for the modem, Joe? How much for the modem?" People
don't realise these days. You just click buttons and just expect it to turn on. And back in the day, what would have happened if the modem had to work?
Probably one of the most exclusive hotels in the whole world. Definitely one of the most expensive. They had two 56k modems for everybody. For the whole hotel. Yeah.
You obviously, when you go to Amsterdam and you go to places like Austria and Slovenia, did you see devilfish? Was that the time where devilfish was around?
Dave was a very, very good friend of mine. I first met Dave in Paris. I first met him in Paris. And my first experience of him was him asking me if he could borrow £1,000. That was my first experience. But he didn't ask me directly. We were all playing in Paris, and he was friendly with Ross. And he said, it was one of those things where one of us always had some money and the rest of us was always skint. And we were in Paris playing lots of cash games. The cash games there were pretty good. And Ross came up to me and he said, "Listen," he said, "Dave's asked me if he can borrow £1,000. I said, "Well, why are you going to lend it to him?" He said, "No, Joe." He said, "I haven't got it." He said, "Can he borrow it from you?" I said, "Well, there's two rules." I said, "First of all, you've got to guarantee it, Ross. And secondly, he's got to ask me himself." So that was my first experience. I lent it to him and I got it back. And Dave and I became very, very good friends. And it was very sad, and he died 5 years ago now.
And that was
April 5 years ago, I think it was. I went up to his funeral. It was pretty amazing. It was a pretty amazing funeral. Everybody was there.
A proper legend in the game, as well as yourself. You know, you've got the stories. That is just about it for part 2. We will be back very shortly with part 3. So back with part 3 of an hour with the Tower and Mr. Joe Beavers. Joe, we're going to start with late night poker. And what a TV program. Do you consider that this was the change in poker?
There's two massive things that happened in poker. One of them was TV and the other one was online.
Yeah.
And TV started back in 1999 with the first ever poker show, Late Night Poker. I've heard Americans say, "Oh yeah, Late Night Poker copied WPT." Well, it didn't. Late Night WPT came in the early 2000s. Late Night Poker was the first ever poker show. And I always remember we were on our travels and we were in Vienna. We were at the Concord Card Casino. And I was with the guys, I was with Barney, Ross and Ram, and we were all in the bar and we were chatting with Nick Cerametta. And Nick Cerametta had a glass of red wine in his hand, like he normally does. And he's a lovely little fella and a good friend. And he was talking about, he'd just put forward to Channel 4 the idea for poker on TV. And the idea was that they would field the game, but they would have glass bits in front of each player where the cards would sit on, and they would have cameras underneath the table. I mean, these days they would have lipstick cameras. This was the old-fashioned late night poker with the cameras underneath the table. So the camera would get the cards, the chips, and the player's face, and they sold this to Channel 4. Okay, Channel 4 have agreed to buy this. But Nick was telling us he was having trouble to get players. He was asking players, do you want to play on this poker show? And people were saying, no, we don't want to play. Why would we play? Then people can see what we do. People can see the moves we make. And we'll never be able to win playing poker again. At this point, Ram walks up. He says, what's going on, guys? So we told him. Ram says, I'll play. And we all said, yeah, we'll play. We said, what's the buy-in? He said, £1,500. It's 40 players or 50 players. So we said, yeah, we'll play. And we all said that we'd play, and we played. And we went off to a small production company in Cardiff called Presentable. Sadly, it's not there anymore. And we would all turn up, and we would all, this was pre-internet, pre-online poker, and there were no sponsors, no branding, no advertising, nothing. It was just Channel 4 buying a TV show. Anyway, we made the show. It became, late night poker became like a family. Everybody would watch everybody else's heat. Everybody would stay for the whole week. Jesse May would bet on every match. He was the original commentator with Nick. Jesse May would always lose his money. It was just, and when the show went out, obviously Devilfish was the first ever winner, the first winner of late night poker. And weirdly, he knocked me out with quad tens in the final. The same hand that Jennifer Harman knocked me out in that we were talking about earlier. So anyway, he knocked me out in the final, and he went on to win it. Yeah. And the show became a cult success. Everybody was talking about it. Mm-hmm. Anyway, the final in the first series got 2 million viewers on Channel 4 going out at midnight on a Friday night.
You do well to get that there.
Well, at the time, Brookside was the #1 show on Channel 4. Andy Booth will know Brookside because it's filmed in a certain part of the UK. And Brookside would get they would get the figures, but they used to have an omnibus on the Saturday. And Brookside figures for that week, including the omnibus, were behind late night poker figures for the final. 2 million viewers. So it became a cult success. And what happened, Phil, was now all of a sudden everybody wanted to be on the show. Everybody wanted to be on the show. But there were only 40 or 50 players on the show. And because we had supported the show from the start, we were kind of grandfathered in, and we were the first ones to be invited back. And so we got to be, I mean, originally there were 6 series of late night poker. They had later adaptations that they called different things, but there were 6 series of late night poker originally. I made 3 finals, and Dave Colclough and I are tied for the record number of late night poker shows that we've been on.
Like it. Was it a 6-handed final, the first one?
No, it was 8-handed.
8-handed. Yeah. I'm going to run you through the first ever final table.
Sorry, say that again, Phil?
I'm going to run you through the first ever 8 players.
Go on, then.
On the final. Dave Elliott, the Devilfish. Pete Evans.
Brian McNally.
No. Dave Welsh.
Yes.
Surinder Soonar.
Yes.
Liam Flood. Mr. Beavers. Joe Fernandez. And Malcolm Harwood. Malcolm Harwood. Now, tell you what,
there's a few old school players in that lot.
If we're touching on old school, they are old school. Unbelievable. That is a fantastic final. I tell you what, that is a quality. And you all became friends, and probably still friends with everybody that's still playing as well.
I'll tell you what happened. There was a big change that happened. Was when, as time went on, the first 6 series were the original 6 series. But as time went on, they started to get branding. It was sponsored by different online poker sites. Yeah. And they also started filming at the Welsh filming ITV offices because they needed bigger things. They needed a bigger studio and more people and stuff. Yeah. And they increased the buy-ins and they messed around with it a bit. But what would happen was the late night poker family changed because, like I say, in the first series and the second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth series, we'd turn up on the Monday. We'd only played one heat, and the semi and the final, but everybody would watch everybody else's heat in the green room. We'd order pizza, we'd drink wine and beer, it would be a fun thing. We'd all go out for dinner together. But what happened in the later late night poker is when the Americans got involved, they would fly in, turn up, play their heat, disappear. So the whole family became very disjointed, and the fun part of late night poker disappeared.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't getting 2 million viewers anymore, and there were sponsors involved. And then Channel 4 didn't want to pay for the production, and the sponsors started to disappear in poker as the poker economy evolved. And the show died.
Moving on, I think most people just watching the late night poker, and if it was repeated, people would still watch it. I'm convinced that people would love to see the early technology and you guys sitting there with a fire, you're just smoking away and you're having a drink at the table.
It's almost compulsory. It was almost compulsory. They made Vicky and I made sure that we had cigarettes when we played. I remember, Phil, just a very quick anecdote. We were playing at the Commerce. We'd been to the Commerce. This is a few years later, and I don't know if you've ever been to the Commerce. Huge poker room in LA. Now on the wall, there's 4 TV screens, and each TV screen is roughly the size of a football pitch. They are the biggest TV screens I've ever seen, and they would have like 4 different games: baseball, basketball, on the American football on these screens. Now, as I walked into the room one day, they had one thing on the 4 screens. They joined the 4 screens together to make one image. And it was Ram Vaswani again on the screen. And as I sat down to play, I looked up and it was Fox Sports had bought Late Night Poker, and they were showing one of the shows that Ram was in, and he was on all 4 screens. And the American guy, as I sat down, he turned to his friend and he went, "Those Brits, they copy everything that we do. We had the WPT, and look at them. Now they've got their own poker show." This is what I was saying before, but late night poker was first. It was the first ever poker show.
Yeah, and it was an absolute classic. And like I say, if it was on TV right now, we would still be watching it. This is fabulous. I'm absolutely loving with this. Back with part 4 very soon. And now with the Tower, part 4, the legend that is Mr. Joe Beavers is right over there. The British Open 2002 PLO, you won it for 25,000. It was the biggest win so far. PLO, was it and is it still your favourite game?
I think when I first started playing Hold'em, okay, like I say, we learnt by playing, and we would talk to each other, and we would do things that didn't have names. We would play squeeze plays, but it wasn't called a squeeze play. It was just something that Ram worked out once and told us, and it worked, and we did it. What's happened in Hold'em is it's kind of been solved. There's so many players that are far more dedicated, far, far better than I'll ever be now. And I can still play okay. I think I do okay still, but players they've solved Hold'em with all their trackers and everything else, and all the game theory and players like Andy Hills and Richard Trigg. It's hard to compete. Whereas in Omaha, it's kind of like it used to be for me. People still make elementary mistakes. People still overvalue their hands. People still misplay from position. People don't understand. It hasn't been, yes, there's lots of learning aids, but there's lots of people that play that make mistakes that they shouldn't make. Whereas the overall field in Hold'em, the percentage of really good players in Hold'em is far greater than the percentage of really good players in Omaha. So when I sit in an Omaha tournament or a Hold'em tournament, I'm much more likely to win and to do better in the Omaha tournament. And it's something that I enjoy. I have various things that I do that worked 15, 20 years ago that still work today. It's hard to say that about Hold'em. So yeah, I kind of do prefer it. It's definitely my preferred cash variant for sure.
Moving on to the year after. I tell you what, 2003. You're talking about players that can't play Omaha. What about the guy that could play snooker, but unfortunately didn't win the world title? Probably the greatest player of all time never to win the world title, but had you heads up for a lot of money in the poker.
Yeah, I mean, people might remember the Poker Million. The original Poker Million took place on the Isle of Man in 2000. TV. It was actually, the final was actually done live. Barney Boatman was in the final, Tony Bloom was in the final, and it was won by a very good friend of ours, John Duffy. Million pound prize money. And then there was supposed to be a Poker Million in 2003 at the Hilton Metropole on the Edgware Road. But this is before the 2005 Gaming Act. And there were lots of rumours that the police were going to come in and they were going to bust it up. Things like tons, temporary use notices that they have now when they hold events in hotels in the UK didn't exist then. And the organisers of the Poker Million got a little bit of cold feet and they cancelled the event. Now that was, I think that might have been in 2001 or 2002. Now in 2003, they decided to bring the Poker Million back, but they called it Poker Million the Masters. And it was a slightly smaller buy-in and a slightly smaller prize money, but it was made for TV. And this is the event that you're talking about. So I played the event and I got heads up with Jimmy White. Now, I had a chip lead on him and he was an okay player, but I was pretty confident I was going to beat him. And we played and we played and we played. Anyway, I set him in and he folded, and I set him in again and he folded. And then I set him in, I think I had ace-10, and he called me with the 6-4 of spades. I had 2/3 of the chips, maybe a little bit less, and he had 1/3 of the chips. But the blinds were big, and he's either limped or made a small raise, and I've moved all in, and he's called me with the 6-4 of spades. And the board ran out, and he either rivered a 4 or rivered a 6 to beat me. And I said to him afterwards, when I was chatting to him, I said, Jimmy, why did you call all your chips off with the 6-4 of spades? He said, Joe, he said, you don't understand. He said, 3 hands earlier, you moved all in, and I had the 6-4 of spades. And it's one of my most favourite hands. I wasn't passing it twice. And that's why he called with the 6-4 of spades. But I remember the trophy, right? The trophy for this tournament was one of the nicest trophies I've ever seen. It was about this big, and it was metal, and it had the cards with the 4 suits, Poker Million the Masters. It was a really, really, really amazing trophy. Anyway, I'm stood at the back. I was still in the main studio. We're obviously all mic'd up. I think we're wearing heart monitors. And Jimmy is across the studio on the other side of the poker table. And he's doing an interview with Barry Hearn, and they're presenting Jimmy the trophy. And as they present him the trophy, my then girlfriend, who is now my wife, Claire, she walked in at the back of the studio. And she came to me and she said, oh, I'm lucky, Joe, I'm lucky. And as they presented Jimmy the trophy, I whispered in Claire's ear, I wanted that effing trophy. But I actually said the word instead of saying effing. I said, look at it. I said, look at that trophy. I wanted that effing trophy. What I didn't realise was my mic was still on.
Oh.
We were still broadcasting live on Sky. And if you go to YouTube and you find Jimmy being presented this trophy, there's a clip of him on YouTube being presented this Poker Million the Masters trophy. And as Barry Hearn hands in the trophy, you can hear this voice that says, I wanted that effing trophy. Anyway, that's me in the background.
But 2003 wasn't all bad, because you then went to Dublin, one of the finest places in the entire world to play poker. And you managed the first place in probably one of the great, it's just, the Irish Open has to be on a poker player's calendar, and any serious poker player, it has to be a place where everybody wants to stop. And you've actually won it That must feel still right now so good.
It is. You know, in my lounge right now, okay, I have one trophy out.
Mm-hmm.
One trophy. It's not the Poker Million trophy. I remember Liam Flood presented it to me. It's a great big cut crystal decanter, really nice cut crystal decanter and 4 cut crystal glasses on a nice plinth. And that's the only trophy I have out in my lounge, and it's my Irish Open trophy. Like I was saying before, we would travel from one event to each event at different times of the year. Every Easter was always the Irish Open, and every October was always the Irish Winter Festival, both in Dublin. And I nearly won the Irish Open twice, Phil. In 2001, there were 3 of us left.
Yep.
And I was playing with Paul, I can't remember his second name, and an Irish lady, another lady called Jennifer Hegarty. And Jennifer and I had over half the chips, 3-handed, in the 2001 Irish Open final. I got a bit unlucky. I won't bore you with the stories, but I got a bit unlucky. I remember Mickey Finn was watching, and he came up to me afterwards. He said, "Joe," he said, you were so unlucky not to win this tournament." And Jennifer Hegarty went on to win it. Jenny Hegarty, was an Irish grandmother. And for the next 20 years, well, not quite 20 years, for the next 10 years or so, Liam Flood, every time he saw me, would come up to me and remind me that I got beaten by an Irish grandmother. 2 years later, back on the Irish Open final table. Marty Smith was on the final table.
Mm-hmm.
And what's his name? The guy that I was heads up with?
Frank Callahan.
Frank Callahan. I was heads up with Frank Callahan. And I can remember, I used to run so much better in those days. I can remember having kings heads up and flopping a king. And that was my winning hand. I never used to play the nuts. And yeah, that's kind of, I think that was, if I could choose to win one tournament, I think it would have been the Irish Open. Mm-hmm. And something else about that Irish Open actually is we actually did live coverage of the 2003 Irish Open on the Hendon Mob website. And the live coverage was a webcam stuck to the wall with sellotape. That was the first tournament that we ever did live coverage on.
If you look around here, it's still the same.
A little bit different now with card room, with Andy's card room direct.
Technology has made the game so much better. Back with more of Tower, an hour with the Tower very shortly. So back with an hour with the Tower, and the legend is still sat in his chair. Joe, the poker boom. What do you remember of it, and was it as crazy as it actually seemed?
I remember a lot. It was pretty crazy. I mean, the whole thing about the poker boom was that we were very, very lucky. Mm-hmm. We were in the right place at the right time, doing something that we loved before it became popular. You know, when we travelled to the World Series to play, we knew everybody. There'd be the Irish crew, the Birmingham crew. It was always the same players. Everybody would mix. Would all stay together. Everyone would have their own bar and billions. And it was, we were doing something that we loved doing, and at the time, you know, we were doing something pretty well. Mm-hmm. And we were the first to get a proper sponsorship deal. We set the Hendon Mob website up in 2000. We were the first to get media attention. And obviously the internet poker was taking off, and we were just in the right place at the right time. You know, if I tried to do that today, it would be impossible, and it could have been 4 other guys doing it. But yeah, it was pretty crazy. Yeah.
Well, the boom took off more or less the year after. The buy-ins certainly went up. The $25,000 Bellagio Classic, which again was another decent memory. We got the final table. We finished 7th. Did the 25k buy-in? What does that mean? Buying in for $25,000.
It was. Do you know? I mean, obviously, it's a huge amount of money. Okay, it is a huge amount of money. We were very lucky. We were sponsored, and what I remember more than anything else is the 50,000 starting stack. It was unheard of, completely unheard of. Suited me. I could wait. You know, I could wait and wait and wait. And I remember being on the final table.
You still got some chips left.
I'm still passing and waiting for aces. I had Paul Maxwell sat on my left. It was a pretty good final table. Rob Hollick was on the table. Chris Ferguson, Jesus was on the table.
Yeah.
Maxwell was on my left. Two British guys sat together, and it was obviously the World Poker Tour Bellagio Classic. It was their championship event. You had to get to the top 6 to make the TV final table. Okay.
Yeah.
They were filming and stuff, but the actual where they film every hand, you had to get to the top 6. So Paul and I are sat next to each other, and there's 7 of us left, and we've got similar chip stacks, and we're probably in 5th and 6th place, perhaps on the table, maybe even 6th and 7th for a while. We were the shortest stacks. I remember he played a hand. He limped under the gun. It passed round. Chris Ferguson raised. It got back to him, and he moved all in. Paul Maxwell moved all in. And Chris Ferguson thought for ages and called. And Chris Ferguson had pocket 10s. So everything's about pocket 10s, Phil. He had pocket 10s. And he had limped under the gun and moved all in with ace king offsuit, Paul Maxwell. And he said to me, as he hit an ace or a king, and as the chips were being pushed to him, he said to me, but he said it loud enough so anybody could hear it, nobody else would play ace king like that. He said, that's how you play ace king. Because obviously if it had raised with it, it would have been much more tricky. This is what the point he was getting. Anyway, I finished 7th. Rob Hollick knocked me out. And Paul went on to finish 2nd. I think I cashed $160,000. I know you've got it in front of you. $188,000. Paul went on to finish 2nd for $2.1 million. If the two tens hold up for Chris, that might have been my 2.1 million. It would have been a TV final table, World Poker Tour final TV table.
Absolutely, and the names in that field were just unbelievable. But you're looking at the Ivies, the Mizrakis, the Dave Williams, just Gavin Smith, absolutely amazing.
That's pretty good players there.
Yeah,
still pretty awesome players.
Yeah, but then we change, and I think British poker changes forever in 2007 because season 1 of the GUKPT starts in Bolton.
Walsall.
Bolton.
Okay.
Don't take away Praz Banzi's first ever victory because it was Bolton. The GUKPT, as we know, we are Grosvenor sponsored, but you've travelled around the world for at least 10 years. We then go to Bolton in February to play a £1,000 tournament, and it basically changes tournament poker in Britain. Did you play the first season?
I played Walsall. That's why what I thought you were talking about.
You don't like North. You don't like going to North, is that which is?
The first ever GUKPT tournament I ever played was season 1 Walsall.
Yeah, because you finished 7th.
And it was won by Jerome Bradpiece.
That's correct. Yeah, and obviously
televised for TV.
Televised. Yeah. Televised. And obviously it's still going strong. The GUKPT. It did change live poker. I think the tournaments, the players travelling around the country, just become a mainstay. But also in 2007, a couple more tournaments have started. One of them was the World Series of Poker in Europe for the first ever time. What did you think of this idea?
Do you know what? I'm going to be honest. I'm not a fan.
Mm-hmm.
I played the tournaments. We were sponsored players to play the World Series of Poker Europe events. We were very lucky still.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I'm an old romantic, Phil. And for me, the World Series of Poker is downtown Vegas in Binions horseshoe. Even at the Rio, it's not the same. Yes. It's too big. It's too. I can remember walking from Binions across to the Golden Nugget because we always stayed at the Golden Nugget. And as you walk through, you go past 2 or 3 bars at the sportsbook at the entrance of Binions, and then you walk past 2 bars before you in the Nugget before you get to the elevator. And in the early Binions days of the World Series, you'd have to stop at every bar because someone was buying you a drink. And now at the World Series in Vegas, it's not the same. And World Series of Poker Europe, it's not the World Series of Poker for me. It's a good tournament. It's a good fun festival. We had a few good years in Leicester Square in London playing it. But for me, it's not the World Series.
Yeah. First winner, can you remember? Just off chance?
It wasn't a net, was it?
It was. It was indeed. For the straight million. It was. Beating John Tabata by heads up. There you go. 2007. And then obviously, because the poker boom started, we'd had the GUKPT, we got the WSOP in London. We then had the Great British Poker Tour.
That was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. We played it in Cardiff, but in the casino. Gala Casino, I think it was. And it was.
I think it was. I think it was Bristol.
It was in Bristol. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why I said Cardiff. I said Cardiff because it was filmed by Presentable, the same TV company, production company, like Poker. And I always remember the final table. It was filmed and it went out on Channel 4. This show. It was filmed for Channel 4. It was a big production, and on the final table was Roland de Wolf, Barney Boatman, Rob Akery. And I got a little bit lucky. I beat Rob Akery heads up.
Yeah.
150 grand, 140 grand. And you know who presented me with the trophy and did my interview afterwards?
Who was it?
Alex Jones from The One Show.
Oh, of course it was. Yes, it was.
Before she
because believe it.
Now, I mean, now she's got like 1 million followers and that. But yeah, she was from Wales and she was friendly with the people at the Welsh production company, Presentable, and she did my my interview after I won it, and that was a pretty nice tournament to win. 1,500 buy-in, 100 and something prize money. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I remember that was one of the first times that we got involved because the likes of Jennifer Tilly was over and Phil Lark. And the likes of Robert Williamson III.
Oh, I love those 3 guys. I love those 3 guys. I once sat at the Nugget Bar with Robert Williamson for 12 hours drinking. Just the two of us, talking about everything. And then at 10 o'clock in the morning, when we finished drinking, we went and made a TV show. Yeah, it was just unbelievable. But yeah, and Phil and Jennifer, great people, great guys.
Yeah, great memories. Back with Joe Beavers and more were from the Tower very shortly. Back for an hour with the Tower, and the legend is still sat in his chair, Mr. Joe Beavers. We will carry on with the stories because there are some, and either winning the poker million has to be a great highlight in the career of Joe Beavers.
Listen, without a shadow of a doubt, it's my biggest cash. It's a huge amount of money, and it made a big difference. It made a big difference to me personally. Winning that kind of money is every poker player's dream. But I got lucky in the poker. I got lucky for a number of reasons. I got lucky in the semi-final against Andy Black. I turned 2 pair, and he turned the nut straight, and we got it in. Yeah, that was in the semi-final. In the final, I got it all in with deuces against Liam Flood's 4s, I think. and flop to deuce, and flop to deuce. And I got
When
it
it's
all
running,
in
it's good.
I got it all in with Marty Smith, heads up, with King 4 against Queens and hit a king. You know, there are so many players, so many great players that have come so close to winning tournaments, but you've got to win the key things. And you never, ever, ever get to the long run in big tournaments. You just, it's impossible to play enough of them. And I've had plenty of luck in the tournaments that I've played. If I never win a tournament again, it's not going to average out. You know, I was lucky, and yeah, I did a lot of things right, but I still got very lucky in the key moments. And yeah, that was a long tournament. I think it went on till like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning on TV, live on TV. Yeah.
I said that during the time that they were all closing, weren't they? The casinos and stuff like that. Yeah. The Poker Nations Cup. I'm going to ask you to quickly name your team.
I played 3 times for Great Britain.
Oh, you'll remember it then.
We won it twice. Roland de Wolf.
Yeah.
Dave Elliott. Julian Gardner. There was an online qualifier.
I think was that Francis Turner?
Ian Fraser.
Yeah, Ian Fraser. Oh, the Razor himself. Surinder Suno.
Oh, Surinder.
Neil Channing.
How can I forget Mr. Channing?
How does Neil Channing get into a Nations Cup? What's
And he just won the Irish Open. I think he just won the Irish Open.
That's right, yeah. He was on form.
Yeah.
He was on form. I'll tell you what, the Nations
Cup was a lot of fun. It was kind of late night poker, but for countries. Everybody was watching every heat. It was a lot of fun. I remember the American team had Robert Williamson in it and Clody Gowan in it. They were fun times, real fun time.
Did you try and defend the Poker Million?
I did. You know who won it the next year?
Who won it the next year?
Marty Smith.
Marty Smith. I
think
think that was
lucky against him, and he won it the following year.
Wasn't that the time where he had 1.5 big blinds and he decided just to and came back from such?
Yeah, he lost a massive pot to Liam Flood.
Yeah.
He was 100 to 1 on Betfair to win it, and he went on to win it. 1.5 big blinds again.
Yeah, it was. I remember. I actually
6-handed. He had 1.5 big blinds.
Yes, I remember watching and thinking, well, that's it, game over. And then all of a sudden, we win a hand, we chuckle away. Then he wins another hand, then he chuckles away again. It's
very good friend of mine, lovely fella. You know the name? He's got a little boy. Do you know what he's called?
Surely not Joe.
No, he's called David James.
Is he really?
Yeah, after the West Ham goalkeeper, obviously.
Obviously, not the Liverpool goalkeeper. TV poker appearances over the next few years. Did it change? Did the TV change from it being, like you said, sat in the green room with pizzas and vodka and cokes and whatever it was? Did it all change? Did it become more professional?
It's not so much more professional. It became more sterile. It became more clinical. It became. There were many more shows, and there were lots of spin-offs and stuff, and so the originality wasn't there anymore, and it lost. I mean, there were still people watching poker, but it wasn't a new thing anymore. And I mean, I suppose things like the EPT and GUKPT filming stuff and that kind of stuff was. But it was very different, Phil. It was very, very different from the early 2000s.
And I think one of the major things about obviously filming in areas like that was the smoking, no smoking or anything like that. That completely changed, and drinking at the table seemed to be a bit prohibited.
Some of my favourite stops on the old poker tour was the ACF, the Aviation Club in Paris, used to have. They used to have the 4 seasons, spring, summer, autumn, winter, and they'd have 4 festivals a year. They used to have a great restaurant. You used to pay £15 or €15 for a really nice meal in their restaurant. Really, really good meal with wine and everything. And it was almost compulsory for the Frenchman on the table next to you to have a great big cigar blowing his cigar bloke in between bites of his steak. Yeah, that's what it was. That's what it was like. And so smoking was, it was everybody smoked, and it was kind of an accepted thing. Very, very different.
It was, and then we get a sponsorship deal with Grosvenor, and we've still got a sponsorship deal with Grosvenor, which shows that Joe Beavers is still standing the test of time. Did it change the way your outlook on poker, having a sponsorship deal with such a company like Grosvenor?
The nice thing about being sponsored by Grosvenor is I've kind of come full circle. The first tournament I ever played was in an old Grosvenor casino when I made my first mistake, trying to give the guy that won the pot chips. Chips for my next buy, and I played in that Grosvenor casino 5 or 6 days a week for quite a few years. I've played more cash poker in the Victoria Casino on the Edgware Road, Grosvenor's UK flagship, if you like, than any other casino in the world. And before the coronavirus lockdown, I was a regular there in the PLO game, anything from between 2 and 5 days a week. Playing in the qualifying for the rate race every 6 weeks, and I would be classed as a regular there. So I like playing there. I like the players. I like the staff. It's an exceptionally well-run card room. So to be a Grosvenor sponsored player, we have a great team. I love the guys that I work with. You media guys are okay as well, I suppose. But it's fun. And do you know what, Phil? What I love is, for instance, my favourite stop on the Grosvenor Tour is Blackpool, and Blackpool is as close to the World Series of Poker in the early 2000s as it could ever be. It's the same players, it's the same fun, it's the same feeling almost. You go to that stop and it's what Vegas was 20 years ago.
It certainly was, and obviously, so going back to lockdown, Goliath is the greatest tournament in Britain. I've got a little. I always like the little story that you keep telling me that back in 2018, I think it was, you played 96 levels, was it 96 or 95 levels, and still never made day 2 in the same Goliath.
I really grinded. In order to get to day 2 at the Goliath, you have to navigate 16 levels. Day 2 starts on level 17. I played every day, and every day I bust either on level 15 or level 16. Now, I didn't make day 2, and I played my heart out. Every big confrontation on one of the last 2 levels, every day, I got beat. Whether I was 80% or 50-50, I got beat. And the guy that won the tournament, Mika Tika Toika, I played more levels than him, and he won the tournament.
It's brilliant. And just obviously, there's no Goliath 2020, which is a shame. But for anybody that's going to be watching this, quick word on what it means and why they should actually play Goliath.
It's just the best fun tournament for a small buy-in with a massive field and a massive payday. It's a really good fun week. Lots of people, they set it up as their World Series event, their one event a year that they want to play, and £100 buy-in. What's not? What's not?
And obviously talking of Vegas, the road to Vegas with Team Grosvenor. You've been there a couple of times.
No, this has become one of my favourite weeks of the year. Sadly, this year it's been postponed, but we'll be back next year, bigger and better. Twice the beer is what they say, right? Twice the beer. And we had 30 qualifiers last year. And I've become 20 qualifiers the year before. It might have even been 40 last year. It was quite a lot, and I've become friends with a lot of those qualifiers. Friends that I chat to, week in, week out, and we talk about stuff, and we socialise together. We still have Vegas WhatsApp groups from 2 years ago, where Jeff, Katie, me, Andy, and Trig, we all chat together with the Vegas qualifiers, set up predominantly for the Vegas trip to help everybody. But we have so much fun on that WhatsApp group; it still exists. And Team Grosvenor really look after their qualifiers on the road to Vegas. We have some great nights out. We obviously get to play a World Series event on that week, and I'm really looking forward to 2021.
Yeah. You touched on Blackpool being your favourite GUKPT stop. Any more that you really can't wait to play?
Yeah, my second favourite GUKPT stop is Blackpool. And my third.
They should have an event in May and an event in the winter. I'm totally with you on Blackpool, and obviously poker has changed a little bit, but people still put Blackpool on the map every single year. And one person we saw in Blackpool last year was Mr. David Hay. He went up. He got the David versus Goliath. This was a big promotion, and it was incredible, and it was a fantastic story. Obviously, you were involved with the documentary. 40th out of 9,300 and being involved, you have got to be pretty proud of yourself, Joe.
David definitely did better than most people thought he would do. I mean, yes, he could have said he had a few rebuys, sure he did. But it doesn't matter how many rebuys you have. I mean, as I've proved how hard it is to get through to day two. But by the way, I have got through to day two on other years. But it's a real slog. It's a real tough thing to do. And not only did he get through to day two, he made the money and he went very deep. And his exit hand would have bust any of us. He was particularly unlucky in his exit hand, flush over flush. So yeah, it was fun making the documentary. You have to remember that a lot of stuff is made for TV, but it's it should bring a lot of new players in, and we'll look forward to Goliath next year when hopefully David will be taking his seat again, and it will be bigger and better than ever before.
Totally agree. We're going to be back. We're going to be back very shortly. We're going to be back with more from Hour with the Tower and the legend that is Mr. Joe Beavers. We are back, an hour with the Tower and the legend that is Mr. Joe Beavers. If you could summarise how poker's changed in 25 years plus, what would the main couple of things you could say?
I think, well, there's lots of things that's changed, right? You have to remember that the first time, well, when I first started playing major tournaments, there was only one tournament in the whole world that had a 10,000 chip starting stack. Yeah. That was the World Series of Poker main event. Yeah. The weekly tournaments that I used to play at Sergeant York started with 500 points, 25 blinds. I mean, I tell people that story, they just don't believe me. But 10,000 starting stack was the only tournament in the whole world, and that was the championship event at the World Series of Poker. These days, if you start with 10,000 chips, people are saying it's not enough. So the whole dynamic of the chip stack and the leverage in that stack has changed, and tactics have changed. The education that you can get your own personal poker coaches now. You can analyze your hands from online and live, and you can do it using all kinds of different software. All the different game theory and exploitative different strategies and stuff. There were things that didn't even exist. I remember, chatting to Barney one day, and Barney and Ram, and they were saying, "Listen, Joe," he said, "if someone raises on the button and the small blind calls, don't look at your hand cards on the big blind, just 3-bet." I thought this was the craziest thing ever, right? But I started doing it, and it started working, and I started picking up chips without looking at my hand, right? And now, if someone does that these days, everyone calls it a squeeze play. They know what's going on. 15 years ago, 20 years ago, no one knew what was going on. They just think, oh, he's raising from the big blind, he must have a big hand. The small blind is kind of, it shouldn't really be there at all, and the button's raised because he had position. So all the tactics have changed. The fields have changed. They're so much bigger. The tournaments are so much longer. There's a lot more stamina involved. So, you know, there's many, many more talented players. A much larger percentage of the players in a big tournament know what they're doing. And it's tougher.
Does that make a difference to what you play now? Do you play more cash than you do tournaments? Do you play more Omaha than you do Holden?
Predominantly, when I first started out, I used to play nearly all cash, and I used to use that to finance the tournaments. Obviously, you know, things are very different for me these days. I like playing tournaments. I like playing Holden tournaments and Pot Limit Omaha tournaments. Playing cash, I definitely favour Pot Limit Omaha cash. But if it's not available, I don't mind some Holden stuff. You know, it's just, you know, if I can get into a good game, I don't mind what we're playing, really.
Obviously, with the Hendon Bob, and also on the Hendon Bob, do you know where you are on the England's all-time money list?
I know it's a lot lower than it used to be.
Right, we're going to I'm going to quickly run through the Hendon Bob and where they are on the Hendon Bob. Where are you?
35th.
You're 39.
Oh, okay.
That's not bad. Barney.
29th.
Oh, I was getting a bit better than that. 22nd. Ram.
31st.
I'm actually amazed he's 24th, because I've not seen Ram Swanee in a tournament table round a playing poker in Britain for years, and he's still 24th. Shows how good he was, by the way. And Ross.
41st.
56th. You're giving him far too much credit. Far too much credit for the Hendon Bob, but it doesn't mean you're not all super players. I'm going to run through a quick fire section.
Can't guarantee quick fire answers.
Right, here we go. The best player you've ever played against.
Okay, without a shadow of a doubt. Well, there's two or three, but I think it's got to be Phil Ivey. He just has an awareness at the table that people don't have. It's like he sees through you and he sees through your cards, and he does things that it's like he's a magician. He's just very, 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 very talented player.
The most fun you've ever had at Spoke Table?
Joker's Wild at Goliath.
The biggest loser.
I don't understand the question, Phil.
The biggest loser. The biggest loser. No. The most underrated poker player. I know exactly what you're going to say. The most underrated poker player.
I don't know.
I thought he was going to say Barney.
Yeah, but he's not anymore.
Wow.
He used to be a very underrated. Barney had lots of situations, like I was talking about previously, where he could have quite easily won massive tournaments. He lost a huge chip leader pot in the 25,000 WPT championship event against David Levy. They were like the two chip leaders. Barney had kings and he had ace king, and he hit an ace. And that pot would have given Barney average chips four-handed or something like, and they were like 30 players left, 25 players left. He had so many situations like that. But now, you know, he's had some great success. So yeah, he would have been underrated, but not anymore.
The most over
question.
The most over there. Oh, come on, quickly. Are we not allowed to say?
The most overrated, Daniel Negreanu.
Well, there you go. There you go. Your favourite tournaments?
It's a dead heat between GUKPT Blackpool and the Irish Open.
And your favourite hand?
Pocket nines.
Fantastic. Is there anything at all you would have done differently?
No, I got lucky, Phil. I got very lucky, and I'm still getting lucky.
Joe Beavers, it has been an immense pleasure to spend an hour with the Tower into the insights of just 25 to 30 years of playing this game that we absolutely love. Joe Beavers, thanks ever so much.
Thanks, Phil. Cheers, pal.
Welcome to another hour with the Tower. We are pleased to be joined this time by one of the guys who plays a circuit, and a lot of the circuit we will be talking about. Over $1 million in lifetime earnings, 8 GUKPT main event finals, and the 2019 Grosvenor Player of the Year. It is the one and only from Castaway, Mr. Tom. No, it's Richard Kellet.
Hello, Tower. Just got my lockdown beard here that everyone might not be accustomed to, but
that is a growth, man. That looks good.
Yeah, well, the pubs opened, didn't they, on Saturday, and I was sort of tempted to go out, but what I made sure that I did is I didn't go for a haircut, so then I didn't want to go out like this, so I managed to fade it for another week.
I tell you what, if Simon Zach watches this, you could be brothers.
Yeah, I was going to do look a bit like Zach. Yeah.
You know what? Absolutely. Hey, we're going to run through what Rich Kellet has done for over the last decade. It's been pretty eventful. And one of the first things we can talk about is that we saw recently you posted on social media about you're in a chess club at school. Now, you're talking to a guy that used to play for Rotherham, by the way, at chess.
Oh, wow.
So now that is a long time ago at school, by the way. Was chess a good base for poker? Is that what we need thinking?
Absolutely. So in my primary school, in my local village, our head teacher, she was called Mrs. Baxter. She was very, very she was really, really passionate about chess, and it sort of exuded through the whole of the sort of year 6 age groups down to year 3. We were playing, and we had a really avid club, and yeah, it just went from there. Really, me and my younger sister, we ended up being 2 of the better players, and we ended up representing Lancashire.
Nice.
And we'd even go down to England matches at the Albert Hall, where they play the darts now. We used to play in the Royal Albert Hall, where Ali Pali, where they have the darts finals now every January. And yeah, we sort of got to the stage. I was number 4 board for the number 11, the under 11s in Lancashire, and my sister, I think, was the number 1 board for the under 9s in Lancashire. So we were pretty good, and then obviously we were coming home and we were playing each other and getting better and better. And then it got to a point when we were about 9, 10, 11 where we were too good to play the other children. So in the evenings, this was sort of like, we were at an age as well where we were going to bed at 9 o'clock on a usual night, but instead of that, we sort of we were only playing competitively with other children at weekends. So what we ended up doing was we ended up joining like local men's clubs at like 9 and 10 years old. So you can imagine these were really late nights. We're in these local games. We're going to places like I was from Chorley, so going to places like Leyland, Blackburn, and Burnley, and all over the place, travelling around the northwest. And we were sat in there till 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and we were playing against fully grown men who were drinking pints and blowing smoke across the chessboard. So it was it was sort of like the ideal preparation for poker. But yeah, at 11 years old, when I went to high school from primary school, it just sort of wasn't cool to play chess anymore. Everyone, you just couldn't be that kid who was in the library every day. So yeah, I had to get back out on the football field, and I stopped playing then. Yeah, so I've met some people through poker all around the world who've gone on to be really, really good chess players. But yeah, I sort of completely left it alone from 11 years old.
How good could you have been, do you reckon?
I don't know. I definitely felt like I definitely felt like I had some ceiling, because there's a guy in the local village, to me, who used to really give me a good pasting, and that always brought me back down to earth, sort of thing. So I don't know, but it's leading into the poker thing from chess. It's the skill set is so similar, because in chess you're thinking 3, 4, 5, 6 moves ahead, and it's exactly the same in poker with your pre-flop, your flop, your turn and river. It's the thought pattern is almost exactly the same, thinking moves ahead. So yeah, the skills are massively transferable. But I mean, I'd love to sort of play now, but you can't really win money, and the games are very time consuming. So it's yeah, I would love to play, but I don't know. Maybe in later life I'll get back into it. I think when I've got a bit more time and there's not so much poker going on all over the place.
Absolutely. Where did you start first playing poker, and how did you learn, or was it just like?
So this was 2005, 2006. I was just in year 11 at high school, and my friend is my best friend, who lived 2 doors down from me, and was really close with my family. He'd just gone to a local sixth form college, and this was obviously a year or two after the Moneymaker thing, and you got Greg Raymer and all that. So it was basically the exact point at when professionals started winning the World Series main event every year, to when amateurs started winning every year. So they were. I was in year 11 at high school. They were going to, well, as loosely say, they were going to college. They were just going sitting in the canteen and playing every day, and then they'd spill home at night, and they'd just all be playing around my friend's house. So like I sort of got introduced to it at 15 years old. Yeah, I've just got thrust straight into it with the older lads, really.
Well, we got in at 15, so you could have been the Kelster 15, but
yeah.
2008, before you started playing live, you got a massive result online. You come 5th in the full tilt 750,000 guarantee for 33,000. That was July 2008. What did it feel like winning that much money at that time?
Wow, yeah, because I've just turned 18, and like it was pretty crazy, because I did have a little foray into online poker before I was 18, but this was this account was my own account and everything, and yeah, I hadn't really even I'd played tournaments, and I knew that I had sort of like a winning style in them at this point, but this night was crazy. I'd hardly even played any $215 buy-in tournaments before, and I bought into this one, and it was mad. I ended up getting a big stack, and it was the first time that I'd ever actually stayed up all night, sort of playing poker. So you had a break every 5 minutes past the hour. Well, actually, it wasn't even a synchronized break. This was pre-synchronized break, so it would have been whenever the tournament started, an hour play, then a 5-minute break. So this one, I just remember going to the wash basin every hour to splash some water on my face, and I wasn't tired. I wasn't tired because I was pumped full of adrenaline. But just my little routine. I'd been probably the longest I'd ever played a tournament up until that point, or been in a tournament, was maybe 4 or 5 hours play, and this one was like we're now 13 hours into this one, and I'm just going to the toilet, flicking some water on my face. Yeah, and it was really, really exciting. And I was thinking of chip leader 2 tables left, and it was like $180,000 for the winner, I think. And that's just madness, because I think I started the day with $400 in my poker account or something. So yeah, that was definitely what got me a massive taste for online tournaments, for sure.
Did that go straight to a bankroll, or and let you play bigger tournaments?
Sort of, but then I was very I was very, very naive in my early days. So I just used to I just thought I was the best player ever then. And then I would often go and play like high stakes cash games and things, and like experimented in that way. I managed to withdraw a chunk of it, but yeah, like I was very I sort of loved just to jump in at the deep end, and yeah, definitely had a different career path to most when it comes to that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Well, after you'd had that nice score, you started to venture into the live poker. Your first Hendon mob was back in 2008. Can you remember what it was?
So when I just turned 18, I used to go in the closest casino to where I lived in Chorley at the time, which was Bolton Casino, and that was actually back in the day. That used to have some amazing cash games. They'd have like a 2-2 game every evening at the Grosvenor. That was actually where the first ever GUKPT was, wasn't it, Bolton?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the first ever one.
Yeah, and like the games in there used to be crazy. Like I couldn't even dream for games in there these days. But yeah, I used to have a little go into there. Me and my friend would go down, and we saw it advertised on the internet as like a £3 rebuy tournament. Anyway, so we went down. Just thinking, okay, well, we're going to go and play this tournament. It seems quite cheap. It's only £3. Anyway, we realised about 5 minutes into the tournament that £3 actually gets you one set of chips, and that lasts about 5 minutes because everybody's just going all in, every hand, rebuy. So yeah, we opted for the freeze out tournaments then, and I was having a little bit of success online at the time. So like, I actually was playing a lot bigger online when I was 18 than I was in the live ones. And I did a little bit of research, and I found out there was a place, Casino 36 in Stockport, which had some games. And they were £50 rebuy tournaments and £100 rebound tournaments, and they had a really big cash game there. So yeah, it was weird, but I went down there, and I was trying to get in at the front door, and they were sort of saying, yeah, you've got to be 21 really for this one. Anyway, I ended up on some sort of technicality. They ended up letting me sign up at 18, so I was just forever known as the kid in there. I was like just by a mile, and I was playing every night with people like Ali Milou and everyone. So yeah, I've known those guys really, really well for over 10 years now, and that's sort of my first exposure to the poker circuit.
You went to Gala at Leo, second for 1,200.
Right, yeah, I remember it. It was Gala at the Liverpool.
That's right, yeah.
It was like a Sunday evening, the last tournament of the Gala Poker Talk. Yeah,
that's right.
I remember it
well. February 2009, you had another big score on Full Tilt. You must have liked Full Tilt at the time. The Sunday Brawl.
It was by far
third for 40,000.
Yeah, the Sunday Brawl, I think that one was.
That's right.
Yeah, it was by far the best, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people would probably say the same. It's by far the best poker site ever. Just in terms, like, people just used to go on to rail the cash games. Like, you didn't need, a lot of people were just on there not even playing. You had all Phil Ivey and Tom Dwan sat, and Gus Hansen and Patrick Antonius sat with all the big money in the cash games, and it was just yeah, for me, like it was the greatest poker site ever, and I just really liked playing that on there. Yeah.
Yeah, you scored for 40,000, but the following month you played in EPT. Is that what you bankrolled yourself into the EPT with?
No, the EPT was a funny one actually. I was playing on PokerStars, so this the following month, yeah. So as soon as I got the 40,000 score, I withdrew a little bit from Full Tilt and put a bit on PokerStars, and I ended up qualifying through the step system. So I bought into the $82 step, and this was a sit and go. So the top two got you into the next round. And yeah, I bought into the $82 step and got into the 215 and the 630 and the 2,100. And anyway, I'm then in the 2,100 playing for an EPT Dortmund package, and I get heads up with the little Italian guy. Do you remember Dario Minieri?
Oh, yes, I do. I know the name.
Yeah, I was heads up with Dario Minieri, and I think I ended up trapping him, and he made a big bluff, and then I called it off, and yeah, I was super excited about that one. I managed to get the €5,300 buy-in, and I got the Hilton hotel free and some money for flights. So I told my friend we're off to Dortmund in Germany.
667 runners there were, and you were chip leader with 70 left.
Yeah.
Was you nervous? Was you excited?
It was a crazy experience. Day one, I just sort of was playing pretty tight and didn't wait. I couldn't really get many spots day one. I was finding it quite tough. And then in the last level, I got a big double up with 9s against 4s and bagged a moderate stack for day two. And then day two was just an absolute whirlwind. I sort of, I think I had an interview with PokerStars actually at the start of day two. And then I've got on this table, and I'm just running absolutely berserk, but I'm sort of painting a picture that I'm this really tight kid who's just like satellite in for this really big tournament. Like every time I sort of make a crazy move, I'll show a card that perhaps makes it look like that I had a strong hand or something. And they were all buying into it, and I was just going, I was literally just putting the foot down, and then I'd even find a situation where I'd like flop a set or something in a massive pot, and I remember it was because it was so early on in my poker career, but I just, the amount of physical chips I had in front of me at one point, they had to stop the floor people had to stop it and come up and colour them up. So yeah, that was crazy.
Was it true you had aces 3 times in a row?
I think I might have had them twice in a row. Instead, I had them 3 times in a row.
Tell the bloggers anything.
Yeah, I mean, I was really trying to exploit my image because I had a table that I could run over, and I wanted to sort of paint the picture that I was this young kid who'd qualified, who really wasn't really looking to put much pressure on, and then sort of do the opposite, because when my style online at that time was just going absolutely ballistic and trying to run people over. So I felt that the best way to sort of be able to do that was to paint a picture that I was doing the opposite.
15th for 20,000. Annoyed? Happy?
So yeah, the TV cameras came in for day 3 or day 4. I think it was day 3, with 24 left. So that was really strange. I had to sort of like walk up to the camera at the start of the day and hold the card and flash it. And then there's a guy actually I know quite well now called, I think he's called Johan Storicas. He's a Swedish guy, and there's it was €1 million almost for first place, and there's 16 left. But I wouldn't say I was nervous. I was quite enjoying it really. And then I just found a pair of queens, and Johan found a pair of kings, and it was a bit. Maybe a little bit of inexperience, but like the thought of folding never crossed my mind. So it was just one of those things, and just narrowly missed out on the final table. But it certainly gave me a thirst to play more.
Can you remember who won it? Yeah,
it was Sandra Noyox, because she actually knocked me out. So yeah, I do remember.
You'll never forget that one. But 2 weeks later, You got your first Hendon Mob win, and it's still there. The first win at the side of Rich Kelly's name. £200 side event at the GUKPT London.
Oh yeah, it was a £200 rebuy as well, I think. So it was pretty big.
Yeah, they got 26,000 for the win. The final table included James Aikenhead and the late great Dave Colclough. What were it like playing with those kind of guys?
Oh wow, yeah, like that was just amazing for me, because obviously the thing is, when I was sort of 18 and I was really enthused about poker, so I was playing every day online, and I'd even go in WH Smith's and buy all the magazines, and so like to be in WH Smith reading these magazines, trying to suck up all this information, and see these people in the magazines to go into playing with them at the table the year after was just it was really sort of, yeah, it was mad.
Yeah, and after the GUKPT win in 2009 was such a good year for yourself, because in August you got the biggest online score. You're on F-Tops. Event number 20, 2,438 runners. You got 96,000. And a jersey.
Wow, yeah, that was incredible. I was my friend stayed up all night with me. The guy my friend who lived 2 doors down from me, who taught me how to play poker, actually, he stayed up with me all night, and yeah, that one went on until about 7 a.m. And actually, back on Full Tilt, they used to have another really cool feature. Any of their red pros, if you knock them out, you got the buy-in for the tournament back, and you got a T-shirt that said "I knocked out Full Tilt Pro." And with about 3 or 4 tables left, I knocked out Alan Cunningham.
Oh yeah.
Really, really famous American pro at the time. So I knocked him out. I got the $215 back for my tournament entry, and yeah, the Full Tilt T-shirts. I used to have quite a big collection of them, as you can imagine. I imagine Mormons probably got garages somewhere filled with them.
You got a jersey for winning the F-Tops as well. Can you remember what you did with it?
I think I ended up selling it for about $300 or something.
Somebody's walking around and they've not played F-Tops at all, but they've got the jersey.
Yeah, it was like a big, like I was a very, very I was very, very slight build back then. It was a big American gold football thing. Yeah, it didn't look good on me.
But he just carried on. 2009 was fantastic, because you run deep in the World Series Poker Europe, which was down in London at the time, in the 1K, finishing 28th out of 608 entries. Yes, it was only for 3,000, but that kind of field down in London must have been a bit exciting.
Funny story about that one, actually. So is that the 1K event that JP Kelly won?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Yeah. So me and JP Kelly were JP Kelly was first in chips overnight going into day 2, and I was second in chips overnight going into day 2. And I think I'd played on the Friday, and day 2 was on the Sunday. That Sunday was the Sunday that Michael Owen scored that goal against Man City. So yeah, but on the Saturday, interestingly enough, I actually had my biggest ever cash game winning session ever. I was playing in the Vic in London, and I ended up buying in for about 5,000. And then, like at the when it got to something like 6 a.m., I was playing Bamboss heads up. If you know Bamboss, he was an absolute legend in the Vic. I absolutely loved him. But if he was on tilt or something, he would just play crazy, and he'd always like to go to the cashier, and he'd say more chips, please, and he'd get a big stack of the 5K chips. So no matter how many chips you have, he'd just come back and plonk 150K on the table. So yeah, I was up to about, I must have been up to about 65,000. So I was winning £60,000 in this cash game, and like that at the time for me was just like absolutely insane. It was like fairy tale stuff, really. And then I ended up and Bambos was straddling every hand for me. So like we were playing heads up, and if I didn't want to put the straddle on, he was like, "Okay, Richard, I put it on for you." So, like he was just trying to make pots enormous and things, and I was like, "I'm in for £5,000. Do I really want to play 120,000 pot here?" And it was also it was getting 6:30 a.m. So I had this big day 2 at midday, and then I think Sam Trickett said to me the next day, he said, like, "What have you done? Like, why would you ever leave in that spot? That's the best spot you're ever going to get in a cash game." And I was just like, "Yeah, I had a day 2, and then I was excited for that day 2.
At one point, you sat next to Chris Ferguson.
Yeah, Jesus was on my
What's
left.
What's that like, knowing he's won the World Series?
Well, yeah, he's quite an imposing character to be honest. I think I ended up playing one pot with him, blind versus blind. See, this is crazy because like I can even like this is probably one of my most mad poker skills. Like I can remember the exact hand that I played against him like 10 years ago. I had ace 10 in the small blind, just one hand, and he had king 9 in the big blind, and I just remember I hadn't played out and I lost that to him, and I thought, yeah, I don't really want to get into another pot against him.
He just wanders around, doesn't he, all nice and quiet, but must be so intimidating at the tables.
Yeah, I felt intimidated in that pot, to be honest. Yeah, and I think I got a little bit of a lesson taught in that one.
Did you play the World Series main event at all in Europe? The one down in London?
I did play that. I'm trying to think. But to be honest with you, that tournament back then, it was an absolute marathon, and like the structure was unbelievable, and I was just sort of one of those kids who was trying to win it on day one, and my game was not suited to playing that, and I ended up just frittering my chips away, if I remember rightly, in that one. I think I did. I think I got an okay. I think I got like sort of an okay start and middle of the day, but I busted towards the end of day 1. But yeah, I was not pacing myself very well in those sort of events at that time, for sure.
I remember when I was down there doing the interviews and stuff like that. The quite a few of the Americans that came over were saying it's the best assembled field that ever played.
Oh yeah, it was insane. The household names, like obviously I was 19 years old, and I was starstruck because so basically, actually, before I played the main event, I played the 2,500 round of each Omaha and Holden one, and I had Helmuth on one of my tables. I had Barry Greenstein on one of my tables, and I was sat next to Doyle Brunson on one of my tables. So I was just like, wow. And then when I got in the main event, I had a couple of good players on my table. I had Mike the Mouth Mattisau on the feature table behind, and Negrano on the table there. So they were shouting over to each other. And like, if I thought I hadn't seen it all, like towards the end of the day, I looked over at Negrano's table, and Phil Ivey was sat there.
they're just fantastic fields. So every credit for trying to play in one of them events. We're just skipping forward to November 2013. You made your first GUKPT main event final table, and you finished 6th in the grand final for just short of 26,000.
Yeah.
It was a long tournament. It was the one that Kev Allen went on to win for 150k.
Yeah.
Do you know much about it?
So yeah, we just played in Blackpool the week or 2 before, and my friend Mike, who I used to travel around with, Mike Thomas Ziggy, he'd got a result. He'd come second in the £300 side event, so he'd won a seat, because back in those days in 2013, if you won a side event anywhere in the country preceding the grand final, you would automatically get a seat into the main event. So Mike had won that, and I'd done well on the cash games in Blackpool, so we thought, right, we'll go to the grand final for the first time, I think. And we went down there, and on I think it was the Wednesday, Mike ended up winning the £250 six max. So yeah, I don't know if he got another seat into the grand final for that. Maybe you were capped at one, and I still didn't have my seat. But then on the Thursday, I played the £250 Omaha event, and I won that. I won that event outright. So I ended up getting the seat for the main event. And yeah, the main event was crazy. It was weird, the main event, actually, because I was on the same when I bought into the main event on that. I was on the same seat number and table number as my birthday. And I always thought it was always just a bit. I was always just a bit like superstitious about that. But actually, on my table towards the end of day one I had Mustafa Kanat, 2 to my right, who I didn't know who he was at the time, but I just remember him completely outplaying me in one hand and thinking, who the hell is this guy? But he wasn't well known, Mustafa, at this time. This 2013, he would have sort of been still struggling to get like a big result. And 2 to my left, I had Bryn Kenny.
Yeah, it gets easier then.
Yeah, so these guys were. I ended up winning a big pot with Bryn, where I had ace king and he had queens, and I ended up getting 2 big streets of value on a king board. But yeah, I just sort of survived day one. I think I ended up bagging about 90,000. And day two, day two was insane. I think probably up until recently, or like I think it's my favorite ever day of poker. Like, it was just insane. Like, I ran 90,000 chips up on day two of a GUKPT into 1.58 million or something, and it was just absolutely insane. Like, I was just going and going and going and going, and yeah, everything was coming off.
Awesome. Must have been a great final as well. Obviously, Kev Allen won it. One of the nice guys on there around the tables.
Oh, yeah. Kev's a great guy. I love seeing him at every start.
And March 2014, we make another final table, this time in Manchester. 192 entries. You finished 4th to 15,000. But first 3, Simon Dedman, Steve Warburton and Rhys Jones. What a final 4 to start with. But as soon as you bust, they just decided to chop it up.
Yeah, I think that there was even. I think Carl Marenholtz and a couple of other good players were on that final table as well. Like, pound for pound, at the time, it was the most insane GUKPT final table ever. Yeah, that was an incredible one. Simon Dedman was someone that I was really, really, really watching at this time as well. I really admired him, and I think. In my opinion, he's the most complete GUKPT player, the best GUKPT player ever, just because, I mean, his record would be right up there. And I just used to watch him and learn a lot from him. And his attention to detail and stuff was really, really good for me to sort of use him. Like, he used to know what I was thinking before I was thinking it as well. Like, I'd make a big bluff or something, and I'd go to mop my cards, and I could see him looking out of his corner of his eye, and he'd have a little smile on his face, and he'd go, "You were bluffing there, weren't you, Richie?" And he just knew every single time. He just knew, and I'd have to fake it sometimes and say, no, actually, I had that one time, like, because otherwise he'd just be able to read me. Like, his focus was absolutely in a different league to anybody else's.
Well, the following week, the form just continued because you went to Sheffield, played in the GPS, 400 entries, second. And this time you chopped it with James Parker and the one and only Mr. Ali Malou.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
what's it like playing against the Malou?
Oh, well, this final table was really, really difficult to navigate because Ali Malou was on my left, I believe, and he had all the chips. So anytime I'd raise a strong hand like ace 10 suited or something, you just go, oh, I'm all in. Like, and I couldn't do anything, and it was horrible. And I think the stacks. I think the stacks when we got to 300 to 3 left were something like Ali had 8 million, I had 1.3 million, and the other guy had 700,000. But it was getting late for Ali, and he was just like, yeah, I'll take this. I'm gonna get off home now. But special mention for Ali. He back in the day in the GUKPTs when I used to first following them around. Like no matter where the festival was, he always used to win an event, and it would always be like he'd take first, and the rest of the final table would chop. It was remarkable.
the only person I've ever heard who took more than first place prize money, and the rest chopped it apparently.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. He used to have everybody strangled.
In 2014, it just continues for you. In May, you booked your best score so far in the UKIPT High Roller. It was a 3,000 entry, and you chopped it with Dave Shallow for 68,000. Did you play for the trophy, or did you just chop it then?
No. Well, the final table. Yeah, me and Dave ended up with all the chips heads up. And I'd never played with Dave before. I think I'd played with him a little bit online. But yeah, he had slightly more chips. And I just said, yeah, let's chop it, and you can take the trophy because you had slightly more chips, and we ended up getting an even chop. So it was a pretty good deal for me on him, I guess.
Yeah, we've been a 3K entry. There were only 101 runners. Was it yet again one of these events was just a tough field?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there was less sort of recreational players in there, but I think the sort because I'm sort of used to battling with strong players online. Or at that time, especially like 2013, 2014, I was sort of my game was sort of online poker at sort of high stakes MTT. So my game was designed to play against that sort of player. Like I used to struggle a lot against recreationals, exploiting those. But like at that point in time, though, that sort of suited me, the high roller circuit. So especially live. So in DTD, particularly in the high rollers over the years, I've actually got a really, really good record. So yeah, but yeah, the pound for pound, there was some great poker players in the field.
Yeah, September 2015, the closest you'd been so far to taking down a GUKPT main event when you finished third in Luton to the eventual winner, Mr. Will Davis.
Yeah, that
frustrating.
Yeah, very. Well, I say very. I came back from day one with not many chips, and then yeah, day two. Day two. It was the one where we finished day two where we weren't in the money, wasn't it? And I was overnight chip leader going into trouble at the start of day three. So yeah, I was a little bit. I ended up going into the final table with the most chips, or one of the most chips, but I played a little bit cagey, to be honest. I was a bit disappointed in myself. I was being a little bit cautious. But yeah, I mean, third place is still pretty good.
Following the next GUKPT main event, November 2016, we went on to Blackpool, where you chopped it with. Now this was I think this was a chop where everybody watching the table thought, you know what, this could either go on for one hand or 17 hours. You chopped it with Middy and Tom Hall.
Wow, yeah, that was a pretty tough spot to be in three-handed in the GUKPT.
It was a great final. Can you remember much about it?
Yeah, I think it was a really, really good final. Actually, I think there's plenty of action and there's a good mix of characters. Yeah, I think Middy put me in a couple of horrible spots where I had to find the trigger against him early on as well. And then, yeah, I'm just trying to think. Yeah, it was tough though, three-handed, and we sort of came to a conclusion that we didn't really want to flip for thousands and thousands of pounds. And Tom was Tom was off to play another tournament. He had a flight the next day, and we sort of deduced that Middy's advantage of having the extra chips, we'd just give him the trophy. So yeah, I think we were all pretty happy with that one.
Yeah, I remember Jeff Kimber being fourth. It wasn't a bad final to be on, I tell you.
No, yeah, it was remarkably the year after. All four of us who finished in the final four made day 3 as well.
But then you just decided, 2017, you thought, fed up with this winter weather, I'm off to Australia. What's obviously wasn't taken lightly to do that. Were you still playing online, and did you think you could just go out there and play online and have a bit of fun?
Yeah, so yeah, 2017. It's like 2017. I went to the Aussie Millions as I do every January. I just love it over there. They have it's the height of summer over there in January. So, and they have the Australian Open tennis. I actually watched the Nadal against Federer final, and I was in Melbourne for the month of January, and then my friend had just split up with his girlfriend in Sydney, and she'd moved out. So I went to live with him for 2 or 3 months, and yeah, I was just grinding online, trying to sort of get myself prepared for the Millions Festival that was going to be at DTD in April time.
Back over in the spring of 2017, the Party Poker Weekly Leaderboard.
Yeah.
Now, it's not only did you get the free seats, you obviously did well in the tournament as well while you were playing online. What did you do with the seats that you'd won?
So basically, every week the top 10 players on the leaderboard for Party Poker got a £5,300 seat. So yeah. I was just going at it hammer and tongs. I was getting up, grind, yeah. Like 16 hours a day. And yeah, I managed to come in the top 10 in the world 5 out of 6 weeks. I don't think I could ever do that again if I tried. It was a remarkable like sort of streak that was on, but it was tough as well because to get the maximum points, these were the $100 tournaments, so it's the high leaderboard. So it's $100 tournaments, $200 tournaments, and $500 tournaments counted. And like the 500s, I was having to re-enter a couple of times. So you're looking at like $1,500 outlay just for one tournament. So yeah, it was pretty fortunate that obviously I did well as well off the tournaments. Had some of my greatest online scores. But yeah, they let me play the first one, the first £5,300 seat, and then they just gave me £20,000 in credit for the other ones. So yeah, it was an amazing haul, and that's what really I think that was the first time that I really sort of got into the whole leaderboard thing.
Just incredible. You just end up with $5,300 seats, just like yeah, just what to do with these?
Yeah.
January 2018, you won the 25-25 Bolton, 228 entries. You chopped your 3 ways for 10,000. What is it about these 25-25s that you like? You seem to do really.
Oh no! Well, this is, you're about to say something really interesting because me and my friend Pixie, we used to go and play all of them when we'd travel all over the Northwest. And for about 1 or 2 years, neither of us could make a day 2 in them. Never mind cashing them. We couldn't make a day 2, and it was really weird. It was like the last hand of the night, we'd get it all in with queens against ace, like 8 kings against ace queen, and they'd find an ace or something. It was remarkable and we were sort of like, we can't do anything in these 25. Should we stop playing then? And then yeah, that was the first one that I won. I'm trying to think back to how the tournament went in that 2018. Oh yeah. I don't know. We definitely used to struggle with them though. And it was only really last year that I sort of really got to grips with how to play them, to be honest.
Yeah. In October the same year, the millions in the United Kingdom, the main event, 1,015 entries. You finished 35th for 20,000. Andy Booth finished 45th for 17,500. So it must have been a tough field.
Yeah, Andy was actually on my table on day 3 and day 4, I think. Yeah, that's that. I mean, that's just that's really what I play poker for, to be honest. Like to be deep in those tournaments, day 3, day 4, where you can win £1 million. That's where the excitement comes from, and that's definitely where the excitement comes from.
These 5K events with 1,000 runners, they've got to be feels like an EPT, haven't they?
Yeah, but exactly the same. If not, they're really, really tough. Like the Millions Tour in the last year or two has just got stupid tough. I'm not really, I don't really have much desire to play them, because I remember every time that I look at the sort of chip counts for them, like of the top 40 players, I know 35 of them, and it means that you're in for a tough time.
Yeah. 35th, 20,000. But it's what can you remember the exit? Was it annoying?
I just ended up losing a flip. I lost a pretty big pot with Ace Queen against Sam Grafton's Ace King, and then I just ended up losing a big coin flip against some Swedish guy after that, and that was it, unfortunately.
Well, back in the winter, you went back to Australia for the summer and played some live poker out there, cashing 6 times for just over 28,000. What's the poker like in Australia? What's the recreational stuff like?
Oh, it's brilliant. I really like it there. I think we're a little bit more advanced than them poker wise. And yeah, the Aussie Millions in particular is just an amazing, like you'll not hear a bad word about that festival from anyone who goes there. It's everyone's favourite stop. Obviously, being the height of summer and stuff when it's cold and wet in England is appealing as well.
Well, not only Australia, but 2019 in the January, you went to South Korea, and they've took you to the heart because you've got a nickname out there. What was it?
Mr. Champion.
You had 2 firsts and 2 thirds in 3 days.
Yeah, it was that was just absolutely insane. I got there. So basically, what the deal was, I was living in Australia for 6 months that winter, from October time until March. So if you've got a tourist visa, you have to leave after 3 months, but you can just leave and come back in. So I was thinking, oh, I'm going to have to leave. What should I do? I could go to Tokyo in Japan for a few days, or I could go to Bali for a few days. I thought, well, I'll have a look on the Hendon Mob, actually, see if there's any tournaments. So I went on the Hendon Mob, and it's the Japanese High Roller Series in South Korea. So, yeah, about 30 minutes later, my flights were booked, and I was off. And, yeah, I got there for the first night, and I was planning to play the Super High Roller, and it didn't actually start. So I jumped in a bounty tournament, and this bounty tournament was bizarre. I think it was about a 1,300 buy-in, where only 300 went to the prize pool, and 1,000 was the bounty. So it's just it was completely unheard of. I'd never seen anything like this on all the websites that I'd played on online. But yeah, it was absolutely crazy. So like there was a hand early on where like someone who I only had slightly covered moved all in, and I did the maths, and like I just had to go with it with pocket 3s. He ended up having pocket 8s, so I hit a 3, and then I just had all the chips then, and just bounty, and I ended up winning that tournament. I think it was like 12,000 or something, including the bounties. And by this time, the Super High Roller had started. So there was 1 level left of the day, though. So I jumped in the Super High Roller to play the last level of the day, and then we bagged up, and then come back the next day for day 2 of the Super High Roller. Ended up coming 3rd in that one. That was good for about 25,000 or 20,000 or something. And then the next event that I played was another bounty tournament, and I ended up winning that. And then all the staff were going crazy at this point. They were like, "Mr. Champion, Mr. Champion." And then the next day after that, I played another event and came third in that. So it was just a remarkable heater. It was a good few days over there, and I really liked it over there. Actually, I went to the Incheon. Was the local city, and it was a bit like going into the future. It's a cool place to visit.
Australia, South Korea, and then straight back to the UK with a bang. Finally in the GUKPT in Manchester and finishing second to Ben Marigeds. You chopped the tournament for 70,000. I think that was an exactly straight chop, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think what we did was, we just did an ICM chop for the money. It was pretty much the same, and then we just did an all-in flip for the trophy, and so I basically had a 50-50 chance of being a GUKPT champion for the first time after all those close things, and I think I had ace-4 and he had 6-5, and it just came brick 6 on the turn, so it still evades me.
Well, the trophy cabinet will eventually get full, I'm sure. Don't flip for the next one. When you get heads up, just take a little bit of time trying to win that trophy.
Yeah.
But in July, the World Series, the 1500 PLO, you chip leader when we go to Vegas. You're 60 left, but unfortunately, you finished 52nd. We were reading the updates, and it sounded like you were just bashing everybody up, especially Daniel Negreanu.
Yeah, Negreanu. It was a really funny one, that, because I'd say PLO tournament's my strongest game, and like I ended up making a couple of plays against Negreanu, and he was like, wow, and I had Conor Drynan on my right as well. He's a really really good player, and I ended up making this fold with ace king jack in a hand, in a spot where you're not really meant to fold, and Negreanu turns over the aces, and he was like, wow, and he had his vlog out and everything, and that was maybe the best single day of live poker I've ever played, actually. And then the day two, I was, as you say, I was chip leader with 60 left, and in a really really commanding position, but I just got in two ridiculous hands and I mean, that's tournament poker, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't expect it to be frittered away, that is for sure.
No.
MPNPT, the high roller win in July 2000.